All right, we're going to get started in just a little bit, and I'll explain the title, which might have caught your attention right away. Let me get a little bit more music on, and then we'll get rolling just shortly. Hang in there. So this is live streams like this are always a celebration, right? We're excited because I've gone through my process, which on a Swedish beauty like this is going to take about 12 to 14 hours. Whereas if you went to a sew and vac, you would spend, Susie even said there's a couple of occasions where she's gone into sew and vacs with a sewing machine and they said, would you like to wait while we do it? Now you can imagine if I were to say that to a customer, would you like to hang around for 12 to 14 hours while I service your machine? They'd probably look at me like I was screwy, right? But that's the difference between a machine coming to the workshop here in Kentucky or back in Wisconsin or for a short time in Minnesota, as Susie and I pivoted to come down south. They just don't devote the time to going through the machines at the level that I do here in the workshop. And it's because they have a lot more overhead. They usually are leasing a space that could be thousands of dollars a month. And they have all kinds of other expenses, maybe additional employees, contract work, all the blah, blah, blah that results in them having to kick a lot of money out in order to keep that operation moving. So a little bit about this machine. This particular machine came out of the great state of Indiana. And a lot of you know that have been following me for a long time. My dad was born and raised in Indiana. And that's part of what inspired me during the pandemic to find that history museum in South Bend, Indiana, and for all of us to rally around that history museum and to do that fundraiser, and for you to get a tour on the outside and the inside of the Singer sewing machine cabinet factory down there in South Bend, Indiana as well. Indiana has a real special spot in my heart because I used to visit there as a little boy with my parents, and saw my grandparents and my uncles and my aunts and my cousins. And that's where I learned about pea-toads, and I learned how to shoot a BB gun. And I learned all kinds of cool things down there in rural Indiana, right around Morocco, Indiana. And if anyone wants to take time to Google Morocco, Indiana, and type something really cool and interesting in the live chat about it, I'm going to send you something special. Won't tell you what it is, but I'll send you something special. So go ahead and do that. So this machine, the first contact I received was from Jim in Indiana. And I'll just say that Jim lives somewhere in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area. And he said, my wife has one of the Husqvarna Viking machines. And when we put the foot controller all the way down, after a short time, he said the machine heats up and then it locks up and it starts making an awful grinding sound. And he said, I've done a little bit of troubleshooting and tinkering on it. He said, we can't figure it out. We'd like to send it to you. And I could hear his wife, Gloria, the owner of it, in the background, sharing different tidbits and different observations that she had as well on the machine. And so eventually the machine arrived here, and some of you may have saw that unboxing. Some of you may have been a part of that live stream as well. Sadly, I learned in the process of the machine being here that Gloria had gone into the hospital. And a lot of us go into the hospital. About a year ago this month, I was in the hospital. Some of you may have not known that. I had intense abdominal pains and ended up going to the local hospital in Pineville, Kentucky. And they did a bunch of tests. They also juiced me up on, Susie, how many doses of morphine was it to try to manage the pain? I don't remember. But I told people afterwards how many doses of morphine they gave me. And they said, that would have killed the average person. You must be an Army guy. So they ended up ultimately deciding that I needed to go by ambulance down to Corbin, Kentucky. And they admitted me there for a number of days. Eventually, they let me out. I don't know why they let me out, but they let me out. But back to Gloria, they admitted Gloria, and they eventually released her, I believe, and then they admitted her again. And on that second admission to the hospital in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area, she passed away. And I can only think of one other instance where I had a customer's machine that came to the workshop, and in the course of the machine being here, the customer passed away. And that was a gentleman that retired from the government and also retired from teaching down in Texas. Some of you may have remembered that gentleman, and he sent me a really cool music box. I don't know where it is right now in the workshop. I'd have to look for it. But I had reached out in follow-up because I had done some machines, as you saw recently, for some customers at the senior center over in La Follette, Tennessee. And I reached back out to Jim because he was my contact. And that's when he told me, I said, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you sooner. I did some machines for some seniors over in La Follette, Tennessee. And I'm coming back to this machine now. And that's when he shared with me, he said, Gloria passed away. He said, but we still want you to go forward with the machine because we have a whole slew of granddaughters that want grandma's machine, and they want to learn and they want to sew on it. And so please, please, please finish it and then get it back to us in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so there are a number of granddaughters in Fort Wayne, Indiana right now. I don't know if they're going to be watching this live stream or not. I know that with the death of his wife, I I know that Jim is going to be going on the road to visit relatives that want to make sure he's doing okay and just check in with him. And I believe he's actually leaving today to go on the road. But I wanted to share those little bits with you because machines remain relevant even in death. Even with the death of Gloria, we've got a number of family members that are eager to get this Swedish beauty back, especially now that it's working properly and it's doing just fabulous. And really, it's a tribute live stream today. It's a tribute to a beautiful lady that I've never met. I hope to meet in heaven, Gloria, who was the proud owner of this machine for a number of years. She was not the original owner. How do I know that? Because on the front of the bed right here, I'll show it to you when we get closer to the machine. The original owner, T. Thornburg, was so passionate about protecting this Swedish beauty, which happens to be a 21E, that the owner actually put their social security number on this machine. A lot of owners did that back in the day. They would take one of those etching tools and they would actually dig into the metal and put their social security number, one of the most secure ways to declare ownership back in the day. I did the same thing with my Siberian Husky at the prompting of our vet before I took that Siberian Husky over to Germany. Right on his tummy, he was kind of stupid up with some sort of a drug that the vet put him under. And then she actually put a tattoo on she shaved back the hair and put a tattoo of my social security number on his little tummy. He was just a little guy. And then eventually the hair grew back and covered that. And she explained, she said, I've heard of other owners that take their beautiful dogs over to Europe, not necessarily Germany, but take their dogs over to Germany, and they would put their social security number in the ear of the dog, and a would-be thief would cut the ear off of that dog so that they couldn't have that social security number on the dog any longer. I couldn't believe it. What? Really? What? Are you kidding, right? No way. No way they wouldn't do that. But they did do that because they were so adamant about wanting to get that dog. And this dog, I don't have any pictures that I can show you, but imagine a walking American flag. This Siberian Husky was red and white on his coat and then had piercing blue eyes. So he really would have been a target, but I was so protective of him and he was so protective of me that if anyone had come within distance of trying to hurt him or take him or something like that, they would have been in heaven long before Gloria got there. Let's just put it like that. And that's the way we are about our pets, right? I remember when Teresa and Tim came to Kentucky to visit Susie and I, and they brought Rutger, and Rutger was behind the workshop here up in the mountains in Kentucky, and the parachute cord that I gave Tim to tether to Rutger to keep him safe broke, and Rutger all of a sudden disappeared down the hill. Teresa was up on the deck watching, and her face went white and tears flooded her eyes. And Tim was like, oh my gosh. And I was up on the deck still then, and I jumped over the railing onto the landing and then ran down, and Tim and I went after Rutger, and just everyone was just, you know what I mean? We were mortified. We were mortified that Rutger would get loose and get lost. That's how we feel about our puppies, right? All of us do. And if you have cats, you probably feel that way about cats as well. But, let's just suffice to say that we protect what's ours, whether we're in Kentucky or Wisconsin or anywhere else. All right, let me get a drink of tea, and I'll put on a little bit more music, and then we're going to jump into some tests so you can test your knowledge and also gain knowledge all of the products that you see off to the side over here, all of these over here, over the years, people have told me that they've used these products on their sewing machines. They've either used them in their sewing machine motor, they've used them inside of their sewing machine. And so we're going to test all of these products to see what is the flash point of these products. If you decide to clean the motor of your sewing machine with one of these products, is it safe? Could it lead to disaster? Could it set your machine and your house on fire? These are all things we're going to discover today in this live stream, along with a DIY on how to tear this upper tension apart on a machine like this 21E and reassemble it and still have it work. I hope. Yeah. All right. All right, we're going to jump right into this because Susie and I have to run off to somewhere after the live stream today. We've got a mission that we've got to go on. So we're going to, I won't say we'll go short because we never do, right? We always run about 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours on these live streams because we cover a lot of fun stuff and you learn a lot of new stuff about these machines as well. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to move over by these chemicals. And I do have a fire extinguisher right at my feet in case something goes wrong. But I would like all of you to chime in right now. Please chime in and into the live chat. I'm going to describe what each of these chemicals is, and then I want you to type in the live chat what chemical you think is going to be most dangerous to use inside of a sewing machine or in the process of cleaning a sewing machine motor. A lot of these chemicals, over the years, people have said, I've done this to try to loosen this machine up. I've used this chemical, I've used that chemical, and a lot of these chemicals will be familiar to you. So I want you to chime in into the live chat after I describe each of the chemicals. Tell me what you think is going to be most dangerous, and then we're going to actually test each one of these chemicals, each one of these products, and then you'll know before you use it on your sewing machine motor or on your machine which one could lead to disaster, which one would probably be pretty safe in using it. Okay? All right. So let's go over by those chemicals right now. I'm going to try to position the camera, and I'll also show you another one of Susie's shirts. I don't know if you've seen this one before. One of my favorite ones. I love this color. This, what is this, like a burgundy almost? And if you want to get one of these shirts and you win one of the prizes, then go ahead and say, I don't want the micro screwdrivers like Leland got. I don't even want those really cool tailoring shears that Jenny just won. And I should show you a picture that Jenny sent to Susie and I. And she wanted to give a perspective. These 11-inch Guggenheim professional tailoring shears that come with a lifetime warranty that she just received out in Ohio. She said, I want to give you an idea of how huge these things are. And so I've taken a picture of them in front of my featherweight, and then you'll really know it because we have another pair to give away. We have another pair of these to give away. If you want to have an idea of how big these professional tailoring shears are, check this out. So that's a featherweight, and those are the shears that Jenny just got out in Ohio. They're almost as big as the featherweight. Literally almost as big as the featherweight. And I kidded with her when she came back with this picture. I said, they look like tree trimmers, right? They look literally like tree trimmers. They're so huge. But that's the fun of getting involved with these live streams. The fun of joining in and being courageous and stepping out of the shadows into the light. So many of you said when you finally stepped into the live chat, I've been watching this channel. I've been watching you, Scott. I've been watching these live streams and the videos for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And I finally haven't had enough confidence and enough courageousness to step out there and join. So let me just say this, that we love you guys. And the leadership team that is instrumental in leading these live streams and taking care of the family, they're going to take care of you if you step out of the shadows. And I don't even know how many people we have in the live chat right now. I can't see my laptop screen, but whether we have 5, 6, 700, 800, whatever we have, all of you, we love you guys. And we're so grateful to have you here. And the leadership team will take real good care of you if you step out of the shadows and you introduce yourself. You talk about the type of sewing you're doing. Talk about the machines you have. Talk about your love of sewing, just like Gloria that just passed away, the owner of this machine. And now this is going to be passed on to her granddaughters. We all love our vintage machines, don't we? We just do. And when they are sick and they come to the workshop and get better, we're just so excited to get them home, right? We're so excited. But let's focus in right now. Let's focus in right now on these products and then put them to the test, okay? And yes, Susie remembered the sweetener in here today. My sweetheart remembered the sweetener, and oh, is this tea good? But it's only about 30 degrees. Can you imagine? It's only about 30 degrees right now in Kentucky. Up here in the mountains, we could have snow today, but I don't think we will. I think we've had enough snow, and especially all of you in the north have had enough snow, and you're like, we're ready for springtime. Let's have some springtime. And to warm me up out here in the workshop, we're going to put these products to the test and see whether or not they'll generate a little bit of heat out in the workshop to keep me warm. All right. So I'll get over here. We'll bring the camera a little bit closer. Bring the camera just a little bit closer. I'll try to step away so you can see these products being tested. I've also got to see if I can get my laptop screen. I should have done that before I reached over here. Hold on just a second. And I think that was Susie sending me a text, which I can't reach. The phone is way out of reach. Let me see if I can get the phone. Oh, we have somebody in the chat from Germany. So I will say, Guten Morgen. I don't know what time it is in Deutschland right now, but willkommen. Ich heiße Scott, and we're so glad that you're here today in Germany. Ich wohne in Deutschland, 3 Jahren amerikanisch Soldat. So it's so good to have you here. We're so privileged and honored to have folks from around the world join us, and we love all of you, especially Germany. I miss Germany, and Susie and I eventually are going to visit Germany and have a chance to. I'll have a chance to show her just the beauty of that country and the beauty of the people. Germany is such a beautiful place, such a beautiful place. Okay, so these are all of our products. I'm just making sure you can see that as well. Yep, you can see that. So here's our products. Let's go through our products. I've had people over the years tell me they've used carburetor cleaner to try to clean the inside of their sewing machines to get off all of the grit and grime. And they've used it on motors as well. So one of the products we're going to test today is carburetor cleaner. And this one is made by SuperTech, which is a Walmart product. We're also going to be testing, what is this? PB Blaster. Blaster since 1957. This product also people have used when their machine is jammed up. It won't turn. The balance wheel is locked or something like that. They'll spray their sewing machine or their motor with this stuff. And we're going to be testing this as well to see how dangerous is it to use in your sewing machines. We're also going to be testing this as well. This is made by WD-40, and this stuff is lithium grease, white lithium grease. We're going to be testing white lithium grease as well to see what the flash point is. How dangerous is this stuff to use in your sewing machine or on your sewing machine motor inside? Okay. We're also going to be testing CRC electronic cleaner. We're going to be testing this as well to see what the flash point is. And if you've ever used this product, then you'll know how dangerous it was or how safe it is. Another product we're going to test today. We're also going to be testing Goo Gone. Goo Gone, it sounds like a fun product, doesn't it? A lot of people have used this to try to strip the lacquer and the buildup off of different parts, including the commutator inside of their motors. They'll use this with a Q-tip swab and they'll scrub over it. Is this stuff dangerous? I don't know. We'll find out. You probably have seen this at sewing centers. This is a Zoom Spouts console by a lot of people on their sewing machines. How dangerous is this stuff? Flash point on it. We're going to find out today. We also have rubbing alcohol in my little special apothecary type container here. Is rubbing alcohol dangerous to use inside of your sewing machine or inside of your sewing machine motor? We're going to find out today, rubbing alcohol. And then last but not least, one of my favorite products, and this was a label that I believe Susie did for me, kerosene. K1 kerosene is a product that I use a lot in the workshop, and I've demonstrated it even cleaning the surface of sewing machines. It's a product that can be safe and effective. But what's the flash point? How dangerous is kerosene to use inside of your sewing machine and inside of your sewing machine motor? We're going to find out today, okay? So if anyone wants to, I've got to see if I can, I'm really kind of stuck in this little corner over here. I can't get out very easily. Yes, it's me. Here I am. Hi, welcome. And yes, I have a fire extinguisher nearby just in case. So if anyone has an opinion about what product they think is most dangerous to use, type it in the live chat and we're going to get going on this. This is going to be our test center right here. I'm going to try to get even a little bit closer. I've got myself stuck in a corner. If something goes wrong, it could get ugly real quick. But I'm going to start with a product that you may not have seen me use before. I don't think you've ever seen me use this before. It's going to be this PT Blaster that a lot of mechanics use this stuff. A lot of mechanics will use this on bolts that are rusted and other things like that. It kind of eats through the rust. And that's why people are tempted to use it in their sewing machines. They'll use it, spraying the inside. If it's all rusted up, they'll maybe even use it in a motor. So let me give this a good shake like this. And I'm going to shut off my light just above the workshop. Get that a little bit darker over here so you can see the effects of this. I don't think I'll shut this one off. Then it'll be too dark. Oh, maybe not. So this is our blaster since 1957. It's a penetrating oil. And oil, we usually think of that something that's dangerous to work with, right? We hear about the oil fires. We hear about people setting oil on fire on their stove. So let's see what happens. I've got my little torch right here. We're going to ignite all this stuff and see what happens. So I'm going to spray some of this right in the center of my little test tray right here. There we go. All right, here we go. So for the record, we just hit this stuff with a direct flame, no flash, no boom, no fiery flash coming up. So this stuff, I wouldn't recommend that you use it extensively in sewing machines, but if you've got a machine that's really rusted up, you could certainly spray it on some of those pivot points, especially on the balance wheel area. And you could even use it potentially inside of a rusty motor. And you know now that when an ignition source hits it, it's not going to boom. It's not going to flash. So I'm going to set this stuff to the side. And now we know that this is a product that you could potentially use without a lot of danger. Let me go ahead and wipe this little tray out and get that residue out. And now we're going to go to our next product. Our next product we're going to test, just making sure we got it all. Our next product we're going to test is this popular Consew sewing machine oil. A lot of people use this. It's got the little extension tube so you can go deeper into the sewing machine. And some people have used this on motors. I never recommend using a sewing machine oil on a motor. It leaves residue behind and it can create issues as far as that electrical field. So I wouldn't use this inside of the motor. You can certainly use it on the sewing machine. And now we're going to test it to see how it does as far as flash point. So I just got this product in the bottom there. I got a little puddle of it down there. You see that right there in the bottom. I think you can see that in the camera. It's kind of rolling around. We're going to put it to the test now and see how it does as far as flash point. All right, are you ready? So this is also a product that you could use potentially inside of your sewing machine. It could eventually drip down, just like these Swedish beauties right here. These Swedish beauties, the motor is rear mounted, and as you oil different parts of this machine, that product of lubrication that you're adding to that machine can drip down and get into that motor and could become an ignition source if it's dangerous. So we know now that if you lubricate across these points on the top of this machine and it drips down into that motor, it's not necessarily good for the motor, but it's not going to create a fire, because we just tested this product and there was no flash, there was no boom, there was no explosion. So that's good news. I'm going to go ahead and clean this out as well. See that? It kind of stains that paper toweling. I'm going to put this to the side in the garbage can. And now we're going to test our next product. I'll get this one out of the way. So we've tested two products so far, and they're safe as far as being a flash source and being a danger for fire. Now we're going to test a little bit of this carburetor cleaner. Carburetor cleaner is something that people have told me multiple times they've used to spray off their motor. They've used it to clean the inside of their sewing machine. And is it dangerous? Is it a possible ignition source? We're going to find out right now. Now give this a good shake. Put some in the middle of our test source. And let's see what happens. All right, are you ready? That is dangerous. Definitely dangerous. I'm going to move this back a little bit. So I would tell you with extreme caution, if you use a carburetor cleaner product like this by SuperTech, you better make sure that it's completely cleaned off. And if you spray it inside of a motor, do not fire up that motor until all of that wicks out, or you're going to have a very dangerous situation. Carburetor cleaner is one of those products I don't recommend, but I know that it's an easy way to strip off varnishing, and a lot of people use it. So to use it with extreme caution. It's very, very dangerous. And it has a very low flash point. The slightest amount of ignition, especially from a motor, or if you have a wire running through, say to your light, maybe you have a light that has a fray on it that runs through your machine, that's usually going to come from the source of power and run through your machine, and you decide to spray some carburetor cleaner in one of these ports because you think it's gummed up, and that drips down on that exposed wire, you're going to have a very unexpected 4th of July, a very unexpected 4th of July. So use that product with extreme caution. Let me make sure I get all that wiped out of there. We'll just test it again to make sure that we're starting with neutral. All right, no flash. Good. Now we're going to try some lithium grease. Lithium grease is also a product that people love to use on their sewing machines because lithium tends to be longer lasting as far as lubrication. The one thing I'll tell you about lithium grease, though, is it thickens up over time and it becomes very crusted, and it will eventually cause your machine to gum up. So even though initially you might get some good results, I don't recommend using this extensively in your sewing machine because it will over time become really, really thick, encrusted, and it's going to slow your machine down. It's not going to speed it up. So be real careful about using this. Any of the WD-40 products are going to leave a deposit behind as well, and that will also slow your machine down over time. Now, I don't know what you think about this stuff, but when I hear grease, I think of grease fires. I think of any petroleum-based product and the danger that it can bring as far as creating an ignition source and possibly creating a fire in your sewing room. If it drips down again into your motor, if it drips down onto an exposed wire or a wire contact, even inside of your motor, you're going to have wire contacts, a positive and neutral. And if it drips on both of those at the same time, it could be an ignition source. So let's see how this lithium grease does as far as a flash point. Okay, let me get this on there. We'll put some in the bottom of our little test tray. All right, here we go. Lithium grease. So a little bit of fire. There's a little bit of fire. There it goes. There it goes. Not quite as abrupt, not quite as violent as our carburetor cleaner, but lithium grease is also a source of ignition. And that means if you use it inside of your sewing machine, or if you lubricate the output pulleys on your motor on your sewing machine, it could potentially spark a fire. So be real careful with lithium grease as well, or any of the WD-40 products. They're going to be flammable. They're dangerous. Okay, so be real careful. All right, let me see if I can wipe this out. This is really, look at that stuff. See, that's the deposit factor that any of these WD-40 products leave. They leave a deposit behind, and eventually it's going to get real thick and encrusted, and it's going to create problems for your sewing machine or your motor. So I don't recommend using it unless you do it very sparingly. And if I get a nasty note from WD-40, sorry guys, I'm just trying to keep our sewists safe so that they don't set fires in their sewing room or in their home, okay? So I think I got all of that out. Look at that. Isn't that nasty? And that's all going to stick inside of your sewing machine if you use it. Let's just double check it, make sure that we're neutral. Okay, we're neutral. Now we've got some of this, what is this? Kerosene, I think it is. Let me turn the light on temporarily. Yep, this is my kerosene. And kerosene, if you don't know it, back in the day, when people wanted to clean anything, if you get a rusty old wrench that, you know, one of those adjustable wrenches where you can make it go bigger or smaller, and it would somehow be out in a workshop and it would get rusted up, they would get a bucket and they would fill it full of K1 or K2 kerosene, and they would let it soak for weeks, and eventually it would eat away that rust. but is kerosene a safe product to use? Because they used to use it inside of sewing machine motors, especially commercial and industrial motors. They would literally spray the inside of those industrial and commercial motors, and then they would right away go back to operating that motor right away. Is that dangerous? I don't know. Let's find out. So I'm going to take this dropper and I'm going to put some of this K1 kerosene. And the only difference between K1 and K2 kerosene is that K2 is going to have more deposits inside of it. It's going to even be more of an issue in using it in sewing machines, K2, because it's going to leave deposits behind that will stick to the product and the parts inside of your machine. And then eventually they're going to cause that machine to bog down. But K1 doesn't have those deposits, so it's a lot safer to use. So I'm going to put a bunch of this down in the bottom. Put quite a bit in there. So this is K1 kerosene. Let's see what this stuff does. It's getting so hot, it's starting to smoke, but it did not ignite. It did not flash. It did not create any fire. So K1 kerosene is a product that you could actually use inside of your sewing machine motors to clean up the commutator that the carbon brushes run over. You could use it to clean the stators and the stack lamentations and the output pulleys. You could use it anywhere inside of your sewing machine motor or anywhere inside of your sewing machine. It's not going to leave a noticeable deposit behind. It's not going to be a flash source for fire. K1 kerosene, one of the best products that you could possibly use on your sewing machine, inside, outside. You can even use it on the finish of your sewing machine to lightly clean off the surface. It's not going to damage your clear coat. It's not going to damage your paint. It's not going to damage your plastic or any of the other surfaces. You can even use it on chromed pieces as well, and it's not going to damage the chrome. Do I love kerosene? Yeah, I do. I love kerosene because it's a safe product and it doesn't create a source of ignition and fire anywhere you use it inside of your sewing machine. Is it a little bit stinky? Yeah, it's a little bit stinky. But other than that, it's a great, great product to use anywhere in your sewing machine or outside of your sewing machine as well. All right, got that all cleaned up. Just double check that we're back at neutral again. Yep, back at neutral. So now we're going to test rubbing alcohol. As soon as you hear alcohol, you probably right away think alcohol is an ignition source. It's potentially flammable. And you would be right in most instances. But let's try this rubbing alcohol that I have right here in my apothecary bottle. And let's see how it does as far as being a safe or potentially a dangerous source inside of your sewing machine or your motor. So I just put quite a bit in there. Let's see what this rubbing alcohol does. So we get fire, don't we? So if you decide to use rubbing alcohol inside of your sewing machine motor or inside of your sewing machine, remember again, when you use a chemical inside of your sewing machine, even if it's deep inside of there, it can migrate across and eventually come into contact with something electrified or come into contact directly with your motor. So it could be an ignition fire source inside of your sewing machine. So use it cautiously and use it carefully. And if you're going to use it, make sure that it wicks off, that it dries off before you plug that machine back in. Whenever you're servicing your sewing machine, you always want to make sure that it's not plugged in. Never, ever have your machine plugged in, because even if you don't push on that foot controller and you're servicing that motor I've shown you using one of these voltage detectors, that motor has electricity running through it, even when that foot controller is not pushed down. So if you're all of a sudden swabbing your motor with rubbing alcohol and you don't even push on the foot controller, you could still spark a blaze and a fire, and you could burn your house down. So be real careful. There's always electricity running through your sewing machine, just like this one right now. Okay? So be real careful whenever you're working with your sewing machine. Make sure that it's unplugged, that it's not powered up. All right, back to our testing. What do we have left? I've got to remove my rubbing alcohol. We just saw that is a flash type product. We got to use it carefully. What do we have left? Oh, we already tested kerosene too, didn't we? Yeah, we already tested kerosene, so I can move this one as well. Now we have Goo Gone. Goo Gone. People will use Goo Gone because if Goo Gone will strip off different sticky stuff like adhesives, if it'll break down adhesives, then it's probably going to be a good thing to use on my sewing machine or inside of my sewing machine. We'll sometimes get those sewing vacs, that will plaster one of their stickers right on the front of our sewing machine, and we'll use something like this with a cotton ball or something like that to take that off. Why wouldn't we use it maybe inside of the motor or inside of other parts of the sewing machine? Maybe it'll also, since it takes off adhesive, maybe it will also strip off that varnishing and that buildup that I want to get off of those moving parts. Maybe it won't. But is this stuff dangerous? It tells me not to drink it. It tells me not to drink it, but does it have, I'm going to put my glasses on, danger, harmful, or fatal if swallowed? So we're not going to be drinking this stuff today, but we are going to check to see if it's a flammable source. So I'm going to go and pour some of this in my little test tray. There we go. Put that some in the test tray. And now we're going to see if it is potentially an ignition source. Okay, here we go. So Goo Gone does not have an issue with being an ignition source. It does not flash even when the direct flame comes into contact with it. So Goo Gone would be a product with, say, on the end of Q-tip swabs that you could safely use to clean up your commutator, to clean up the inside of your sewing machine motor. And even if you were to fire up that motor immediately after cleaning it and there was a little bit of residue still inside of that sewing machine motor or inside of your sewing machine that could drip down onto some electrical source, it would not be a source of fire. It would not be a source of ignition. So Goo Gone is a potential product you could add to your arsenal to clean the inside of your sewing machine or even the inside of your sewing machine motor, and you wouldn't have to be fearful about sparking a fire. So go Goo Gone. Woo, 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 woo. All right, let me clean this up. And we're going to be to our last product now, this electrical cleaner that you can use inside of even contemporary sewing machines to clean off the circuit boards that are inside of the computerized machines, much like this one right over here. You can see right now I've got this machine torn down extensively. I'll show you a better shot of it once I get onto my little corner, but I've got the bottom torn off. I got the underside of the free arm. I also was cleaning the inside of the faceplate area as well. So these computerized machines have very expensive circuit boards and computer boards inside of them to generate those beautiful stitches. And this is a product that can be used to clean that dirt off of those circuit boards. Why does it matter? Well, it matters because as dirt and stuff builds up on your circuit boards, either inside of your sewing machine or other electronic products,
that dirt and that dust will start to insulate that board and will cause heat to build up on that board, and that board will start to superheat, and eventually that board will get so hot because of all of that junk that's insulating the heat and not allowing that heat to escape, that that board will flash, almost like you saw some of our products, and it will actually burn that board out. And those boards are very expensive, hundreds of dollars, and hundreds of dollars to install them as well. So by cleaning off your circuit boards carefully using a product like CRC electronic cleaner, you can keep those boards running safe and running cooler much, much longer. You can also use this inside of laptops. You can use it inside of desktops. But is it an ignition source where we need to be concerned if we spray it inside of a sewing machine motor, if we spray it inside of a computerized sewing machine, and then we plug that machine in? We don't even have to hit the foot controller. There's already electricity running through that machine. Could it spark a fire? Could it be dangerous? We're going to find out right now. Just going to wipe out my tray one more time. Make sure we're starting from ground zero. Make sure that we don't have any ignition source in there already. We're starting clean. Now we're going to use a little bit of this electronic cleaner that a lot of people have used inside of computerized devices. Is it dangerous? What do you think? Let's find out. One, two, three. Yes, it's very dangerous. This is probably the biggest fire flash that we've gotten during this live stream. So a lot of people would think of electronic cleaners being kind of a benign thing. It's designed to go into a product or a device that has electricity running through it, right? It's designed for that. But it's also got a very low flash point. So it's designed to clean those things inside of that electrified product or device, but you've got to let it wick off. You've got to let it evaporate so there's no residue left. Otherwise, you're going to spark a big fire. You're going to destroy your sewing machine, and maybe you're going to destroy your house if the blaze is big enough. You saw how high those flames came from this particular product. So is this product something you have to use with extreme care? You bet it is. Electronic cleaners are wonderful. I've demonstrated them. They do a great job of cleaning off, say, upper tensions and other things like that. But you better make sure that there's no residue left or you're going to have a bad day. Okay? Well, I hope you found this demonstration helpful. If there's other products that you're curious about, there I am. If there's other products you're curious about, is it safe to use on your sewing machine? Is it safe to use inside of your sewing machine motor? Send that information to us or type it into the live chat, and one of the leaders will let me know, hey, would you consider testing this product? Could you try this product to show us what the flash point is on it? I'll be glad to do that. And that way you'll know if it's a safe product or if it's potentially a dangerous product. Okay? Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I'm going to go ahead and drink a little bit of tea to wet my whistle. And then we're going to do a quick DIY on the upper tension on an upper tension unit, like the one that is on this 21E that we're going to be sewing on today. And that unit looks like this. I'll show it to you right now. This unit right here, I'm going to show you how to take this apart. It's a tricky upper tension to take apart and to put back together so it actually works and doesn't come apart. A lot of people will take this style of Swedish Beauty upper tension apart and they'll go to adjust the dial, and all of a sudden the knob will go bing, will pop right off. I'll show you how to clean it, put it back together without the bing factor, okay? All right. let me turn my lights back on. And we will take a little break. You can get acquainted with some new folks in the live chat, like our friend from Deutschland, from Germany. And then we're going to go ahead and eventually we'll put this machine to the test. All right. We've got all these chemicals over by this electronic machine. Yeah, I'll show you this machine a little bit closer now. So even these electronic machines can be broken down. See right here, I've got the bottom of the machine off. There's a lot of service points. And look at all these wires that are electrified. And that's where if you're using a product like this electronic cleaner right here, inside of a sewing machine like this, on any of these little servo motors that drive different functions of the machine, you've got electrical fields running through this whole electronic machine. And you've got to be incredibly careful so that you don't spark a fire in this machine. This is a lovely Janome machine that eventually you'll see it in a live stream demonstrated. And it belongs to Sandra out of the great state of Kentucky. And this particular one is a Janome Skyline, Skyline. If anyone wants to Google it, kind of learn about what this machine might be able to do and what I might be demonstrating in a week or so when I present it, you can look up the Janome Skyline. Really quite a spectacular machine. And it has a lot of circuit boards, a lot of electronic, a lot of electrical running through it to power this machine. Okay, let me put on a little bit of music, and then we will, oh, I better turn on my other light too. There we go. We will go ahead and do our DIY on the upper tension. Maybe I'll do it over here. We'll see. All right, let me put a pause on that real quick. We'll put a pause on the music, and I'm going to try to bring that camera. I'm kind of stuck in a little corner over here. I don't know if you can. If I bring the camera back further, you'll see kind of my predicament. So this is my corner right here that I'm going to be working in as I demonstrate doing a DIY on this part. So I need to make sure I have all of the tools I need before I go into this little corner, because then I'm going to have to move the camera again to try to get back in. See if I can do this. I'll get it set up, and we'll do a DIY in this upper tension unit that it plagues a lot of people. I've even met colleagues that have been in restoration business for a long time. And I just stepped on a spider. We've got a lot of spiders in Kentucky, and some of them are dangerous. This one just, I don't know where he popped out of. Let me see if I can move this real quick and I'll show you. I just happened to look down on the ground and he was crawling across. And I thought, I don't want him to crawl up on me while I'm demonstrating this machine. So, and Susie, I just caught another spider recently. And Susie, some of you don't know this, but Susie is a master gardener. She's also now a master naturalist as well in the state of Kentucky. Those are distinctions that really, she's got a lot of knowledge. And I caught a spider out here in the workshop and I brought it into her and she looked at it and she says, I'm pretty sure it's this. I said, is that dangerous? She said, oh yeah, you bet it is. So if Susie wants to type in the live chat what that spider was, it's in a jar right now and she's going to send it to spider heaven. But we've got a lot of dangerous critters in Kentucky, certainly other spots of the country and the world as well. But we've got to be real careful. If you're outside and you're working in your garden and you decide to move a brick, or you decide to, even here in the workshop, if I'm moving something underneath the workbench, I've always got to look first to make sure that there's not a spider there that could bite me. One of my friends that I meet regularly got bit on the hand and his hand swelled up probably about that much. They had to take him on a flight for life to Lexington and lance it and then pump him full of IVs so that he wouldn't potentially die. So wherever you live in the world or in the US or otherwise, be careful. Be careful because there's dangerous things, snakes, spiders, other things like that that could be dangerous to you. And they're so quick. They can bite you before you know what's happened. And all of a sudden you've got to rush yourself or have somebody rush you to the emergency room so that you're okay. So, but that little spider I just showed you, he's not going to hurt anybody now. I probably could have sprayed him. That would have been an interesting demonstration. I could have sprayed him with that electronic cleaner and then hit him with a torch and go poof. Yeah, we won't do that. All right. Always excitement. Always excitement. All right. Let me move some of my stuff. I think I'll get a little bit closer for you. We'll get right to the other side of Gloria's machine right here. I'm going to bring this upper tension out. So the first thing I'll show you is when I got Gloria's machine in, and I had asked Jim if he knew if maybe he had switched it out for some reason. But when I got Gloria's machine and I started tearing it down, it had an upper tension nearly identical to this one. And as I started to take this out, this is what I found on the inside, like that. And what this is somebody at some point cut a nail off. They cut a nail literally off, and they didn't have the proper pin release for the upper tension, so they stuck a nail in there instead. Was it working? Sort of. Sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't, because it didn't fit in there properly. It had a wiggle jiggle factor like this. And sometimes it would push the discs out to release the tension. Sometimes it wouldn't. It would jam up. So I right away got rid of this old nail. And this is what a proper pin release looks for a Swedish Beauty upper tension. One side is going to be slightly rounded, this one right here. And this is going to be the side that goes inside of the unit. This side is going to be pointed, and the pointed end is going to be pointing to the back of the machine and actually getting pushed on to release the tension, kind of like this. If I slide it in like this, as I push this, you may be able to see from the side the discs moving inside of the unit. And that's what's going to, when you raise that presser foot lever, the presser foot lever mechanism is going to be pushing against this end, and it's going to be releasing that tension. Kind of do it like that. Maybe you can see it more readily. And as I increase this also, as I turn this, it'll become more sensitive. Can you see that? I hope you can see that on the screen. So we're going to be using the proper pin eventually, but I'm going to set these to the side right now. So in order to take this mechanism apart, we have to carefully loosen this screw right here. Now you want to make sure you look at this part right here on the bottom to see how it's orientated, because that's what causes this mechanism to come apart when people are using it and adjusting it within that range, within that field. If they go ahead and try to turn this up too far, all of a sudden it goes bing and it comes apart. Some of you may have experienced that before if you have a Swedish Beauty. I'm going to hopefully be able to show you how to avoid that happening. So let's get our little screwdriver and we'll loosen that. We'll see if we can take that apart. We give it probably about 2.5 to 3 turns. And then we're going to be able to pull this entire assembly. We're not quite far enough yet. We're going to be able to pull this entire assembly apart. Not yet. We're close. Oh, I just saw it pop. I just saw it pop. It was like this and then went bing. Yep. So now we're going to be able to pull it apart. Actually take it apart like this. We got this part down here that has the take-up spring housed in it. You can see it has a little plastic cover. This little plastic cover right here is adjustable as well. You'll notice I move it like this. I've talked before about the travel of the take-up spring being critical depending on the type of thread that you're sewing with, and if you're having tension issues on the bottom of the material. The more full range this has, mounted to the machine, it's going to be like this. And as you're sewing, it's going to be sweeping up and down like this. Very rapidly, much faster than that. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, right now, this is at the full travel distance. So it's going to give you the maximum pull, so you have less issues managing the tension on the bottom of the material. It's going to be pulling up harder to give you a really, really nicely defined lock stitch. But what if you're sewing with a silk thread or something a little bit more delicate? Then you can adjust this so it doesn't sweep as far. And that's what this is for right here. As we push this down, it's going to move the spring down and reduce the distance that it's traveling. I'm going to try to move it. Come on, buddy. Maybe I'll do it with my finger. Maybe that'll be easier. Set it down like this. I know it's not stuck because I moved this before. There we go. It was stuck a little bit. You can see right now I moved it to about the mid-range. Where's my trusty kerosene? Looking for my kerosene. Oh, it's on the other side of the machine. Hold on a second. See if I can get to it. All right. See if we can make this just a little bit easier to move. I'm going to be lubricating the spring, and where the spring travels through here, put just a little bit in there, a little bit on the inside as well. Maybe that'll loosen it up a little bit because right now it's kind of stiff. Yeah, it is snug. It is snug. But you can imagine if this is mounted right now, when it's in the sewing process, it's not going to be traveling as far. We'll do it like this. It's not going to be traveling as far. It's going to be hitting this stop point right there. It hits that little plateau right there, and then it can't travel any further. So in the sewing process, it's going to be going like this versus that full swing. You can even move it maybe a little bit further than that. Yep, all the way down to that point right there. So it's only going to be traveling this far, probably about 4 or 5 millimeters travel distance, I should say. But in most cases where I would adjust these for the maximum return, so I don't need to keep turning that upper tension up. If I'm getting lock stitching that doesn't look like it's defined, I'm going to be moving it either to the mid-range, right about there, moving it to the mid-range, or if I'm sewing through real heavy material like leathers, maybe multiple layers of canvas, multiple layers of denim, I'm going to be moving it to the maximum travel swing. So I'm going to be pushing it all the way over here. And then when it's in the sewing process, it's going to be going all the way from here, all the way down. See the distance it's traveling? Like that. But know that that's the purpose of this. You can adjust it if you don't want to stress that thread as much, or if you're wanting to adjust it for other reasons, maybe this type of material you're sewing on as well. All right, I'm going to leave that alone for right now. Let me grab some Q-tip swabs. We're going to clean this up a little bit. And then we're going to also do a little bit of polishing those discs as we take the rest of the mechanism apart. All right, let's put that right over there. Now this little plastic cover, it does come off if for some reason this spring were to be damaged. Let's say that it got bent or it broke off. You can pop this plastic piece off. You come underneath the edge of it like this and you pop it up, and then you can remove that spring and replace it if need be. But we really don't need to do that for our purposes. So I'm just going to clean up around there, especially in this part right here where that spring is going to be traveling over that area. We want to make sure that there's nothing inhibiting that spring from moving freely. So we got to clean all of this up. We set it right there. We can also disassemble the rest of this as well. I'll take off disc number 1. We'll set that right there. I'll take off our center disc. And this center disc is there because whenever you've got a sewing machine that can do twin needle sewing, it can do a dual needle sewing, you've got to have 3 discs. You can't just have 2 discs. Otherwise, you won't be able to do twin needle sewing effectively. Some people say you can feed the thread between the same discs, but that's incredibly problematic where that thread can get caught or snagged or get bound in some way and create a lot of issues for you. So it always makes more sense to have 3 discs. And then if you're doing twin needle sewing, one of the threads is going to go between here and here. The other thread is going to go between the other 2 discs on the other side. So imagine it kind of like this. If you're doing twin needle or dual needle sewing, one thread goes there, the other thread goes there. But we'll take those off for right now because we got to clean them. And we're also going to take out our tension spring, which is actually in the bottom. Take our tension spring out as well. And you can see normally we're used to that tension spring pointing up like this, but on the Swedish Beauties, the tension spring needs to point down when we reassemble it so that this little pin right here, this little point, if you can see that, it's got a little point right there. There's a little hole in the bottom of here that we need to slide that into so that this doesn't keep turning. It stays in a fixed position. Okay. So that's our upper tension right there. That's as far as we're going to tear it down. We're going to set our little pin release there as well. So we basically have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces that we've got to tidy up, and then we have to reassemble it in a certain way so that it's going to function well and it's not going to pop apart on us. Okay. We'll start at the very bottom here where our numbered sequence is. We'll go ahead and clean that up a little bit. I'm going to get my rubbing alcohol. We'll kind of clean that up. We'll use one of our Q-tip swabs to do that with. We get inside of there where that spring goes, and we'll kind of swab that up a little bit. Inside here as well. We also want to clean our post as well that everything mounts on. You can see in there, if you look real carefully, there's actually rust. There's a little bit of rust on the inside of there, and that's why I'm a strong believer in kerosene, because kerosene will coat this metal and then it will prevent it from rusting again. Kerosene is a natural rust inhibitor, And I can tell by looking at this upper tension that someone did not clean it with kerosene. Otherwise, I wouldn't be seeing that rust on there. So we're going to take care of that. We'll clean it with rubbing alcohol first to get the excessive dirt off. And then we'll do our best to coat that area with some kerosene. And again, I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. I'm not going to go as deep and as detailed as I normally would. But look at all the stuff we got off already. All of that stuff that would be holding this upper tension back from doing the job that it's designed to do. And that is to maintain our stitch tension properly to give us a beautiful lock stitch on the bottom, right? Yeah, so we'll get that all cleaned up. We'll clean the outside as well. I'll use the other side of the Q-tip swab on that because we don't want to reintroduce that dirt to the machine again. So I'll clean this off as well. And rubbing alcohol, if you use it excessively, it could potentially damage the numbering on here. So we want to use it sparingly. And then we want to, remember I talked about stopping the action of it? Rubbing alcohol is an active agent. It'll keep eating away at a surface unless you neutralize it. Kind of like pH balance it or stop that action. So we're going to clean over these numbered areas with this rubbing alcohol. And then we're going to go over it with, see all the dirty fingers that have touched it? Get all that dirt off of there as best as we can. Then we're going to neutralize it with some kerosene and stop the action of that rubbing alcohol so that it doesn't damage the numbered surfaces. All right, so I kind of did that. We'll do this as well. You can see that. We got a lot of dirt off of there as well, if you can see that on my finger. But now we need to stop that rubbing alcohol from being active on that surface. So I'm going to take another Q-tip swab with a little bit of kerosene sewing machine oil. It's primarily kerosene. Probably about a 70-30, 70% kerosene, 30% crystal white or lily white sewing machine oil. And I love the lily white stuff. The lily white stuff doesn't have any dyes or colors in it, so it doesn't stain your sewing machine if it gets on your surface. Someone used something other than lily white on this Swedish Beauty. You can see the staining where the oil points are. See that brown staining? That's because they used a sewing machine oil that had a caramel-based color to it. Sewing machine oil normally is going to be clear, and they added a color to it so that it looked more oily, I guess. But then it stains the top. And getting the stain off of these Swedish Beauties, these oil points, is virtually impossible without damaging the clear coat. So that's why we want to use a lily white or a crystal clear sewing machine oil so that we don't stain our sewing machines, right? But now we need to use this kerosene oil mix to stop that action so that rubbing alcohol doesn't keep acting on those surfaces, especially this area here where we've got those numbers. We don't want those to fade or be affected. So I'm stopping the action of that rubbing alcohol right now from continuing to be active, cleaning and eating away at the surface of that upper tension, especially where it's numbered. Okay? So just remember, some chemicals will remain active. They'll continue to be acting on the surface you put them on unless you neutralize them. And rubbing alcohol is one of those chemicals that remains active unless you neutralize it. So all the places we cleaned with rubbing alcohol, we now neutralize that rubbing alcohol with our kerosene oil mix, and now it's safe. So the next piece we're going to put in when we reassemble it is going to be our spring. We're going to go ahead and swab our spring as well. And normally what I would do, I'll just show you back to this piece again. See how we have that rust in there? Normally what I would do is I would clean that. I can certainly do that here. I'm going to use my Dremel tool with this brush. We'll see if we can get some of that rust off. And if you do this, if you use any kind of a Dremel device or a multi-purpose tool like this, always, always, always make sure you have on some sort of eye protection, like me right now. Make sure you have eye protection on when you're operating a Dremel tool, because otherwise you can get hurt. You can get hurt, okay? Making sure I have my camera lined back up again. There we go. There we go. You see where we had rust inside of there now, and if you look at it carefully now, you can see we got rid of that rust. Now, whenever you clean a surface like we just did, getting rid of that rust, the rust isn't really gone completely off of the piece that you're cleaning. The rust isn't completely gone. It looks like it is, but we have to swab over that again with a Q-tip swab to get off the residue and the deposits that we broke up using the Dremel tool. So we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of kerosene, which will naturally inhibit it from being rusted again. So I'm just going to put some on there. I'm actually going to put a little drip in there as well to keep that from rusting again. We'll kind of go over that little stem. There we go. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? That looks a lot better. We got that rust off of there. And then that rust isn't going to migrate to other parts of the upper tension and possibly even to other parts of the machine. So we're going to go ahead and clean our spring now. We'll use a little bit of rubbing alcohol first to strip, and then we'll add a little bit of kerosene to protect the spring as well from rusting in the future, and also to give it a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of slip in twisting as we adjust that tension. Okay, so we cleaned our spring up. You can see we got quite a bit of stuff off of there, even with just a little bit of effort that otherwise would be on that spring and then would be migrating to other parts of the upper tension. Lots of dirt on our sewing machines and inside of our sewing machines. So we're going to reassemble part of this right now. We're going to put that spring back over here. Again, the little point you can see right there goes down because it has to meet up with a hole that's in the bottom of here so that spring doesn't keep turning. It stays in a fixed position. Trying to line it up on there as best as I can. There we go. So I got that spring lined up on that little hole now. The little pinpoint that's on here is now pushed into that hole. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this to the side right now because those parts are good to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean our disc. Our disc that's going to go on the bottom is going to have this little notch in it right here. And that's what's going to keep this disc from turning when it goes on there. So we're going to go ahead and clean up our disc a little bit, our bottom disc. We'll use our Dremel tool, and then I'm going to go ahead and clean our Dremel tool, and I'll show you all the dirt that we're going to pull off of that brush. As you're using a Dremel brush, whether it's a brush like this or another type of Dremel brush, you want to periodically, as I demonstrated in the last live stream, you want to clean it off on a microfiber cloth and pull all of that dirt off of the bristles so that you're not reintroducing it to that machine or the part that you're cleaning again. Then after we clean it, we want to go over it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You never, ever, 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 ever put oil on the upper tension discs. I've gotten people that told me they were concerned about the thread being able to slide through there, so they oiled it. No, never oil your upper tension discs. They need to be squeaky clean, okay? They need to be absolutely squeaky clean. So we're going to put a little bit of rubbing alcohol on that disc, and we'll clean that up. Just kind of swab over at the top. This is the side that's going to be making contact with the thread. So we want to get that especially clean. Do the edges as well. I'm going to do the underside, swab that as well, get that clean. You see all the deposits we got off of there after we use the Dremel tool. We're going to slide that into position. in our assembly with that little notch facing like this. There we go. And that's going to be our baseline right there with that disc on top of the spring. See that? And if you ever get a spring where when you put this disc on, you don't have that spring where it's pushing that disc up, that means your spring has gotten compressed over time. And I've shown you how to do that. You take a screwdriver on one side, on the lowest part, you take a screwdriver opposite of it, and you very gently stretch that spring out a little bit. Don't stretch it too far, but you'll stretch it out a little bit, and then you'll have that little gap. You want to have it so that it's pushing that disc up already. See that? There we go. We set that over there. Now we're going to clean our center disc next. But first of all, I'm going to clean my brush. I got to go over and grab my microfiber cloth. Grab my microfiber cloth and we'll clean off our Dremel tool. You got to do maintenance on your Dremel tool too. So I'm going to go ahead and take our smooth saw like this. I'll do a better job of hopefully getting it tight on my finger so the Dremel tool doesn't grab it like it did in the other live stream. That was kind of funny. Now let's see how much dirt is collected on our brush now that we're using for cleaning. So what we did is we just did a cleanup on our Dremel brush so that we're not reintroducing dirt again. Look at all that dirt we got off of there. You see that? So periodically, as you're cleaning something using a Dremel, make sure you're doing maintenance on your Dremel brush as well, even if it's not worn out yet, because you're going to get all of this dirt off of it using a microfiber cloth. And then when you go back to use your Dremel brush again, it's even flared out. Look at how flared out it is now because it doesn't have all that dirt holding it down. All right, let's go to our center disc now. Clean this one up. I can see there's a little bit of rust on this one too. Especially there, look at that rust right there. Okay, now we're going to swab it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Looks like we haven't used that Q-tip yet on the other side yet, so we're going to go ahead and use that. We'll swab this off and get any of that residue and deposits off of there that might be sticking to that metal. We just broke it up using the Dremel brush, but now we have to remove it. Otherwise, what's the point? If you break up dirt, but there's still dirt, right? So we need to get all that cleaned off. There we go. Set that right there. And you can see we didn't get a lot, but we got a fair amount of dirt off of there. And that's starting with an absolutely clean Dremel brush. So it's not that we reintroduced it to the surface we cleaned. That's all dirt that we broke up. And some of that, you can't see it. It's not, it looks like it's black, but some of that is rust as well that we got off of that piece. Big difference, big difference. And then when we reassemble this, we've got to make sure that this little point right here is going to be facing towards the front because we got to reassemble all this again. We're going to be eventually reassembling it like this. And this point, when we put it on here, has to be facing out like this. And what that's going to do is this is going to become this little point right here that with the center disc that we just put on is going to become our neutral point for 0. When we put the knob back on, we'll make sure that the 0 on the knob that we cleaned is to the right of this center point right here, this little point, and then it's going to lock into this area of the tension right here so that that disc, this center disc, doesn't turn. This point will go into this point and it'll keep it from turning, if that makes sense. Okay? I'm going to set that to the side since we cleaned that already. Now we're going to clean our front disc here. We got to polish that up as well. we only used that one piece to clean it. Let's do our Dremel clean again and see if we get any dirt compared to that. That's what we got the first time. Let's clean it again and see what we get this time. I'll do it right next to it. And hopefully the Dremel doesn't grab this thing and go, ah, like it sometimes does. Yeah, not nearly as bad. Look at that second one compared to the first one. That was our first one after cleaning a couple of pieces. This is our second one right here, but we still got quite a bit of dirt off of that brush that will be stuck to this microfiber cloth now and will not be reintroduced to the rest of the parts we have to clean. And that's why you want to do a clean on your Dremel brush frequently so that you're sticking the dirt to here and not reintroducing it to the part you're trying to clean. Let's go ahead and clean this disc now. I just got hit in the face by one of these little wires that comes off of here. And that's why you always want to wear eye protection. All right, so we cleaned that up with the Dremel. Now we're going to go ahead and swab over it with some rubbing alcohol. Get that disc nice and clean. And you can see, even with a clean brush, look at all the dirt we just got off of that. That again is dirt that would be inhibiting that thread when the sewing process from passing between those discs that are under tension. And then that thread would also pick up that dirt as well, wouldn't it? Because of the friction. The thread is moving through there rapidly. It's creating friction, which generates heat. And then that dirt would stick to your thread and potentially discolor your thread that you're sewing with. So we want to keep our machines as clean as we possibly can. So we're going to add that other disc now. We're going to put it face down like this. So now we've got our upper tension assembled pretty well right there. This will go ahead and turn to the side. When you're reassembling this little arrow thing that is part of our center point will be pointing to the right. And then this will be center. See that little point right there? This right here? That's going to fit into this so that this center disc doesn't keep turning. If it doesn't go in there, it's going to be going, yip, yip, yip. So we're going to put it eventually together so it'll fit in there and then it won't fix. And you can see that spring is doing a good job already of giving us a foundation for tension. All right, so let's set that over there. Now we're going to clean our pin, and we're not going to use the cutoff nail. We're going to use the proper pin, which is this one right here. And this we will clean with rubbing alcohol. We could use a Dremel, but it's dangerous to clean little pieces like this with a Dremel because it could launch it. So we're going to clean it with rubbing alcohol, and then we're going to add a layer of kerosene oil to it to keep it moving freely in and out. And we're not going to use this nail anymore that someone had used in place of this. So let's go ahead and use a little bit of rubbing alcohol. We'll go ahead and clean that. We'll swab this, get it nice and clean, nice and smooth. Turn it like this, do that as well. And again, the way I would recommend, it's going to work. It's going to work even if you do it the opposite way that I show you, just so you know that. It's going to work regardless of which way you do it. But because the pressure foot lever mechanism that makes contact with this is a flat surface, and this side is flatter, I always put this facing into the machine so that that pressure foot lever is going to be pushing on this and pushing that forward to release the tension. And then the point is going to go inside to press against the back of those discs. It's going to give a nice point. So that's the way I would recommend doing it. The flat side goes in, this faces towards the front of the machine. And now we need to put a little light coat of lubricant on it. Those are both dirty. Yuck. Grab this, put a light coat of lubricant on it. And we're going to go ahead and swab the pin, the release pin for the upper tension. Get a nice little coat of kerosene oil mix on it. Protect it from rusting and also protect it from, or give it that slip factor. Then we're going to slide that inside of here. And again, the point is going in, the flat side is sticking out. Okay. Yeah. And we could wait to put this in. Actually, to make it easier, I think I'll wait to put it in, but I'm just showing you how it slides in that little track there. We'll actually clean this other part and we'll reassemble it, and then we'll slide that pin in last. Okay, so let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. You see, especially where the travel area of the spring is real dirty. We'll go ahead and clean that up. We use a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and then we already lubricated that spring, so we won't lubricate that. But remember, before you reassemble it, you want to put some oil right in this there's a little track. It's hard to see it. There's a little track opening right here where that spring is protruding through, and you'll put a little bit of oil right in there to allow that spring to move more freely. Hopefully you can see that it's kind of open. So we would just put a little drop of oil right in there. Keep that spring travel moving well. But right now we need to get that dirt out of there. So we're going to clean that dirt out of the travel space. And what you can do is you're cleaning it. You clean one side like this. You can gently push that spring down, clean the other side before you release the spring back. And always be careful when you're working around springs like this. They're very a light gauge metal. They're very strong, but they can bend and get pushed out of alignment. So just be real careful as you're working with them. Swab the inside of there as well, just gently where the spring is. Clean the bottom also. Look at all the dirt we're getting. You see that? You can also clean the inside of here as well. From that side. A lot of dirt right there. I'm going to wet this other side. We'll start with a clean Q-tip swab. And just be careful around that spring. Be real careful around the spring. And if you give the spring support, I've got big bulky fingers, but I can kind of go like that. So my finger is kind of supporting that spring. You can also swab that metal as well. Notice I'm doing it very gently, very gently. There we go. So as I go to put this back together, I've got to remember that little arrow thing is pointing to the right in relation to the tension, kind of like this. These are going to be lined up. We're going to be sliding that in so that this center disc doesn't turn. And then also with our center point here, when we put it back together, we need to make sure that it's going to be to the left of the center point so we can adjust the tension. Okay, hopefully you can see that. The dangerous thing when putting these back together that a lot of people make the mistake of is this track right here. You've got a track on the inside where that pin is going to go, and then you've got a little track right here, that the set screw is going to screw into to allow this to be rotated. It's going to kind of rotate back and forth. But if you put it back together so that that pin goes into this open space, that's what's going to cause this to come apart as you're adjusting tension. So you've got to make sure that when you adjust this, that you put it back together so that that pin will travel this distance here, but it won't travel so far that it's going to go into this vacant space right here and allow the tension to come apart. So we're going to do our best to try to do that. I'll do it like this with the proper hand. So as you put it back together, the spring is going to be like this. Our little triangle thing is going to be pointing to the right. And as we put it back together, we need to look and see, where is that set screw? There's our set screw right there. How is that set screw going to interact? How is that set screw going to interact with our tension in relation to rotating this? Because we're going to be rotating it like this to the right to increase tension, right? We'll put it back together first. See our little metal tab right there for the center disc is going to go right underneath this and kind of lock it into place. And now what we have to do is we have to look and say, okay, where is our groove? There's our groove right there. You can see our groove opening where our pin is going to go into. There's our set screw. So if we rotate this, let me get my 0. I got to get my 0 on the other side. See that? I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck. I got to rotate it to that side. See how it's on the right side of this center point now. So now I can adjust it, but now I need to see what impact does this have with that pin. Here's our set pin right here. As I rotate this, is it going to come in range of this that will allow the tension to come apart? Rotating this. I got to get all the way up to 9, all the way up to 9. There's my stop point again. I'm back at 0. What we're going to do now is we're going to lock that into place and see if we can keep that. I'm going to take our set screw and lock that back in. Okay, so we're back at 0. It's a little stiff right now. Back at 0, we're going to adjust it all the way up to 9 and see if this assembly will stay in a fixed position. Up to 4, up to 5, up to 6, up to 7, up to 8, up to 9. There we go. We have to, I didn't lubricate that probably as well as I should have, but it would turn a lot easier. It'll loosen up over time. But you can see right now we're able to turn within the full range of the tension. Right now we're down on 0, up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And our assembly didn't come apart. It's because, again, we took into account where this was in relation to this pin. This pin is going to allow it to turn in that track, but it's not going to allow it to come apart. Okay. So at any rate, that's a thumbnail sketch of how you tear one of these tensions apart. They're a little bit trickier, especially this style that's popular on the 21Es. They're a little bit trickier than the tensions that are on the 21As and some of the other Husqvarna models. Now we're going to put our pin in last, right in the end. And then we would simply slide this back into the machine like this. Make sure you keep your center point, and then go ahead and tighten your screw that's inside of the faceplate area. Okay? You can see this is responding well. I'm going to go ahead and increase my tension a little bit. Well, actually, I'm up on 9 right now. I'll turn it down to like 6. Watch these discs on the inside if you can see that. And that's what's going to allow you to pull that thread. That take-up lever is going to push against there. You can see, again, we've got our flat side on the pin facing out. We've got our pointy side facing in. And that's it. Was that helpful? I hope that was helpful. All right. So I'm going to move that to the back now, out of the way. The other thing I'm going to show you real quick is a sew-off that I did as I was finalizing this machine. How long have we been running? We've been running about an hour and 47 minutes. I want to stay on track here. But I want to show you the impact of bobbins. Here's a bobbin right here that I initially was testing the machine with. It's going to be an aluminum-based bobbin. See that? My magnet won't pick it up. Aluminum-based bobbins are real popular now, and a lot of manufacturers are making them, not only for Husqvarna Viking machines, but for Kenmores, for Singers, everything else. The problem is they spin differently inside of the bobbin case. They don't spin the same as the metal ones. They're lighter, and so they get a little bit of a vibration as well. They vibrate and they kind of wiggle around in that bobbin case as they're turning. The result of that is that sometimes the stitch quality is affected. I'll show you one stitch I did. Identical stitch. You see the scallop stitch right there. They look pretty much the same. They look pretty much the same on the top stitch, but look at the effect of the one that was an aluminum bobbin on the lock stitch when I turn it over. This was the aluminum bobbin. Look at the quality of that stitch. It's kind of distorted. And then the top one was a metal bobbin. So I'll show you that. The bottom was the aluminum bobbin. The top was the metal bobbin. Let me go across and kind of show you. Look at the stitch quality. It's affected significantly. The stitch clarity, the stitch calibration is thrown off by the aluminum bobbin on the lower row. The metal bobbin that I used, this one right here, the metal bobbin did the top row and it executed the stitch very, very nicely. So just be careful when you're choosing bobbins. Like I've shown you before, you can check the dimensions of the bobbin to make sure that it's squared up with an original bobbin that would have been made by the Husqvarna Viking sewing machine company in Sweden versus an aftermarket one where they may only be 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch off, but it'll throw your machine off dramatically. So when you can go with metal on vintage machines, always go with metal. But a lot of the contemporary machines, like the ones that I've shown you and the ones that we did for the senior center in La Folla, Tennessee, they expressly tell you not to use metal bobbins in a lot of those type of Janome machines, and certainly some Singer machines as well. Metal bobbins can damage the bobbin case and the raceway. So always check your manual, always check the manufacturer's recommendations, and then double check the bobbins you get to make sure that they're squared up and that they're the proper dimensions, not only from the outside, but also that center hole as well. I showed you the other live stream where sometimes they'll manufacture these and the center hole is too small and it won't even fit on your bobbin winder. So bobbins are a sensitive thing and they can really screw you up big time if you pick and try to use the wrong ones. Okay. All right, I'll show you that it's metal. Ha ha! Come on, pick up, you doggone thing. Pick up. All right. Well, let's actually get sewing on the machine now. Now that I gave you a quick DIY on the upper tension, told you a little bit about the bobbins. Now we're going to put this machine to work. But I got to do one other thing to show you real quick to keep you out of harm's way and to keep you from getting frustrated. And that is, I get contacted regularly by people around the world about belts. What belt does my machine take? What's the proper belt? Sometimes they don't contact me and they go on the eBay or they go on the Etsy or they go on the Pinterest and they buy a belt that the seller says will fit perfectly with their machine. Not always the case. On this Swedish beauty that Jim and Gloria sent me from Fort Wayne, Indiana, this is the belt that was on the machine when I got it. This one right here. It's by Bando, B-A-N-D-O. It's made in Japan. You can see that in the shot, I think. It's belt 934. 934. And whoever installed this on the machine and others that bought the same belt have been told it is perfect. It is perfect for the long belt on the Swedish Beauty. It will fit like a glove. Well, unfortunately, it fits like a glove that's too small. This particular belt is about 12 millimeters shorter than it needs to be. I'll show you. This is an OEM belt that I sell, the silver one right here. Not to mention, look at the teeth on it. It's got much better teeth for gripping the pulley on the motor. This is my belt. This is the Japanese belt right here. Japanese, my belt. Also, notice the width difference between them. Whenever you're looking at belts, you have to make sure that that belt, whether it's a treadle machine or whether it's an electric motor machine, you've got to make sure that that belt is the proper width for the groove over the balance wheel and for the groove on the output pulley on the motor. If it's too narrow, it's going to slip. If it's too wide, it's going to ride too high and it's going to burn the belt out. It's also going to put a lot of stress on the motor. You can see that this Japanese belt is too narrow from side to side. If I grab my caliper, and measure the Japanese belt first, the width of it is going to be just a little bit short of 6 millimeters. You can see that in the shot. It's just a little bit short of 6 millimeters, like about 5.5 millimeters wide. That's too narrow for a Husqvarna Viking sewing machine. The groove is much wider than that. If you measure my belt, which is the proper belt, 5.5 versus, it's going to be just right around 6.5. It's only about a millimeter difference, but it's going to make a big difference as far as how it runs over the motor output pulley and how it runs over the balance wheel. So be careful in picking out the belts from a width standpoint. Also, the length standpoint is another problem with this Japanese belt. If I put these belts on my finger like this, and I try to keep them stretched straight, it's a lot easier when you're not doing it on camera. Let me do it with a screwdriver. Maybe that'll be easier. There we go. Okay, I'm trying to show you. I'll do it with my fingers. It's too hard to do it holding it with a screwdriver. So I've got these held evenly on this end right here. And when I stretch this belt out, that's the difference in length between the Japanese belt and the Husqvarna belt. I'm holding that Japanese belt at its full length. And then I'm pulling that Husqvarna belt that I sell all the way out. Look at the difference. It's significantly longer, probably about 12 millimeters, I think is what Susie and I measured it at. So what's the result of running with a shorter Japanese belt like this on your Husqvarna? Number one, it's going to cause issues with your slow gear and your bobbin winder on the side of the machine. It's going to be pressing too hard on it, and it's going to tend to, when it presses too hard, it's going to tend to flex like this a little bit as that motor is running. So it's going to cause that bobbin winder to bind up. It's also going to put undue pressure on your motor in trying to turn this belt when it's too tight against the bobbin winding assembly. And it's going to be running like this against the bobbin winding assembly and against the balance wheel. So you've got to be real careful with belts, not only as far as the length, but also as far as the width, so that it's riding smoothly over that motor pulley and over the balance wheel as well. Okay? I think that's all I wanted to cover. I think that's pretty much it. So upper tension, bobbins, belts, and certainly release pins. Don't use nails in your machines, please. Don't use nails. They all make a difference. They make a big difference in how your machine will run and how it will perform. Okay? All right. That's it. I'm going to drink some tea and then let's get into this machine finally. Okay? All right. Get those off. Let's see if I can put a little bit of music on real quick. All right, a little bit more rag time, I think. A little bit more rag time. That's not rag time, that's guitar music. Ha ha! All right, we'll go with guitar music. I hear this music, and imagine a voice in the background saying something like, at Billy Bob's Chief Lube, we make sure your car is done right. By the time it leaves, it should be running. Yeah. All right, we're going to start in just a little bit. I'll also ask anyone that's in the live chat right now, if you would be so kind as to click like if you haven't done it yet. Click like if you're enjoying what I'm showing you as far as the DIY stuff and the tests on the chemicals and all that. If you found any of this really helpful and informative, then go ahead and click that like button. It looks like we probably have about 522 likes right now. We can get more than that. So go ahead and click it when you have a moment, would you? Thanks. I like that song. That's fun. Whoa, 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 whoa. The guy's getting wild there. Getting really wild. All right, I'm going to pause this real quick. I also forgot to mention something, and I promised I would mention it. Us, the folks at Guggenheim, you might remember, they sent us a bunch of complimentary shears. One of them just arrived out in Ohio. That was the one I showed you the picture of by Jenny's Featherweight. And they sent us a bunch of other items as well because they're wanting help in promoting what they're doing. And I wanted to mention that Stephen from Guggenheim had sent a note to me saying, Scott, if you're going to be doing a live stream on Saturday, would you tell the people that we're going to be doing a special sale? And I'm guessing many of you received an email about it as well. 30% off of Craft Elite or a free pair of your choice type of thing, blah, blah, blah. But I can certainly encourage you to go to their site and check it out. This is kind of like one of the little capture things that you may have seen. You get a free pair of scissors, or you get 30% off depending on what you buy. They got a deal going right now. So make sure you pop onto the Guggenheim website and check out what deal they have going. These are good folks. They make a wonderful product with a lifetime warranty. All of their stuff, they stand behind it. So it's a great product to invest in your sewing, your sewing space, having more than one pair. I think Susie has probably about 10 or 12 different pairs of Guggenheim products, shears and cutting discs and everything else. So make sure you check that out when you have a chance after the live stream and take advantage of that deal. And it looks like they're limiting it to one deal per customer. But I think they sometimes squeak on that a little bit. If you have questions, you can send an email to Stephen at Guggenheim.com. And Stephen is spelled Steven at Guggenheim.com. Okay. All right, Stephen, I kept my promise. I told our friends about you, and I hope that they show up and take advantage of the great products that you have. So on the Husqvarna Vikings, if you didn't know it, if you want to try to get the data manufacturer for these machines, you just look inside of the faceplate, and right on the right side here is going to be the serial number for Gloria and Jim's, now their granddaughter's Swedish Beauty. This particular one looks like it starts with R2126849. What is that? Yeah, 2126849. R2126849. So if anyone wants to try to look up that serial number, you're probably not going to be able to do it. But if you can, I'll be really impressed. See if you can look up that serial number and tell me what year this Swedish Beauty was manufactured. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to do that, I will send you a very, very, very special prize. Okay? See if you can look that up. I'm going to look it up too. Well, I hope everyone's doing well. I mentioned it before. If you have a birthday that happened this month in March, if you have a birthday in this month, or if you have a birthday in April, I want to wish you a real happy birthday. Birthdays are a big deal to me. I believe in my heart of hearts that God gives life. And when a baby is born, that's a special, special, special gift, that life. And so it only makes sense that as that baby is growing, we make a big deal out of birthdays. Sometimes that kind of fades as we get to a certain age. It shouldn't fade, because every year we live is a gift. Every year we live is a gift. And I think we should celebrate it. So let me encourage you, if you've got a birthday, I want to make a big deal out of it. and see if we can celebrate your birthday. But I need to look up that serial number first, so I actually know what year it is. Okay, I got it. I got it. Ha 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 ha! I got it. Teresa's saying 1955 to 1962. Or 1966, I'm sorry. Teresa typed 1955 to 1966. That is a heck of a good guess, Teresa, but that is not correct, my dear. That is not correct. I'm actually going to text Teresa since Teresa jumped in with a guess. Since Teresa jumped in with a guess, I'm going to type her the year, the birth date of this machine, and then she can post it in the live chat. Okay? And I also have to look up the happy birthday song so I can play the happy birthday song for whoever's having a birthday. All right. So I need to find Teresa's number. Hold on a second. I'll find it. I'll find it. I will. You can run, but you can't hide. Ha, 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 ha. Hold on. I'll find it. Aha! I found it. Okay. So the serial number is typed in the live chat, and the birth date for this particular Swedish beauty that's going to be heading back to Fort Wayne, Indiana, so that the granddaughters of Gloria, who's now in heaven, and Jim, who's traveling around visiting with relatives right now, celebrating the life of Gloria, will know what the date is. So I'm going to send it to Teresa right now, and then she can share it with all of you, okay? I'm a horrible typer. Horrible typer. I'm the worst typer on the earth, I think. All right. I just sent the birthday to Teresa and Tim back in Wisconsin, specifically to Teresa's cell phone. So when Teresa's ready, without a drum roll, but maybe the birthday song, she's going to share that date with you. Okay? She's going to share that date with you. I got to find the birthday song first. It's somewhere here. Come on, birthday song. Come up. Birthday song, birthday song, birthday song. Come on, birthday song. You're in there. I know you are. I know you are. You can run, but you can't hide. Aha. There it is. So if it's your birthday this month or next month, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Come on, sing with me, everybody. Don't make me sing by myself, for goodness sakes. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, baby. Happy birthday. You're a year younger and hopefully a year wiser. Yeah. All right, I'm going to cut off the happy birthday thing. I'll play more happy birthday later. The other thing I want to show you inside of here, I showed you where the serial number is, and with Teresa's help, you now know that this machine was born in 1962. So it's going to be a little bit later. The 21Es came out after the 21As. The 21As were popping up in the latter part of the 1940s into the 1950s. And then they introduced the 21Es. They're virtually the same machine, but they added a couple of little tweaks to them. And one of the things I really like that they added is the presser foot release mechanism. Not all of the 21As have them, but the 21Es and the 19Es do. And what that means is if you want to do free motion quilting or freehand embroidery with a simple push of your finger, you can release the presser foot pressure and jump in and do your free motion quilting. And all you do is this little piece right here. It's got little teeth on it. You give that a little push and watch what happens. It drops the presser foot pressure completely. It releases the spring. Watch this. It's really cool. I love it. Just don't get your finger caught in there. Don't get your finger caught in there. So right now, with that simple little push, we've got 0 presser foot pressure. Well, I shouldn't say 0 because there's some weight on there, but it reduces it to almost 0. And then if you want to reapply the presser foot pressure again, you simply pinch the two together. I've shown this before, but I haven't shown it for a while. Looking for my glasses. I lost my glasses. I was so excited about the birthday song, I lost my glasses. That's okay. I'll find them again. So you just put your finger on the bottom of here and your thumb on the top of here, and you pinch them together, and then you can reapply that presser foot pressure again. So right now it's engaged. And right now, see if I can do this with a screwdriver. Right now, almost got it. I almost got it. I'm so close. I'm going to go with a bigger screwdriver. Ah, ha, ha, ha. The bigger screwdriver. Now we just push that in. And now it's released again. Okay? So the more this is up pressing against that spring, which you can kind of see right there. I'll light it up a little bit for you. The more that's pushing up against that spring, the more presser foot pressure you're going to have. So if I pinch it together again, as I adjust this little disc, pushing it like this, either away from me or towards me. If I do it towards me, it's going to increase the presser foot pressure. If I push it away from me like this, it's going to decrease it. Hope I didn't do that backwards. I may have done that backwards. Uh-huh. Yeah, I did do that backwards. I think I said it backwards. So think of this little disc, if you're looking down on it, as a standard approach to lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So as you're looking down at this disc, if I rotate it towards me, I'm going to the left. And that's going to decrease presser foot pressure. As I push it away from myself to the right of to the right and to the rear of the machine, I'm going to be going to the right, which is righty-tighty, which is increasing presser foot pressure. I hope I don't confuse you. Push it away if you want more pressure. Rotate it towards you if you want less pressure. Yeah, baby. So I'm going to increase it a little bit. I'm going to turn it to the rear, righty-tighty, this little black disc right there. I'm going to go over here and just check to see how much pressure I have. Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I like that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then all the lubrication points in here, obviously. Anything that pivots or pitches or goes up and down, put a drop of oil on it about every 8 hours of sewing, okay? All right. I'm going to stop embarrassing myself since I don't know left from right and top from bottom and just say, yeah, figure it out. Figure it out yourself, doggone it. No. No, you push it to the rear. You push it to the rear if you want more presser foot pressure. You pull it towards you if you want less. And then that's our quick release right there. Okay, I better close it before I get in trouble. All right. So let's go ahead and get sewing on this machine. I have no idea what I did with my glasses. I may have to get Susie's help in finding my glasses. Maybe, maybe not. They're blue, for goodness sakes. How can you lose blue glasses, Scott? How do you do it, buddy? How do you do it? Put them somewhere. All right. I'll put on a little bit more birthday music while I'm finding my glasses. And then we'll go from there. Ha ha ha! Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. All right, so let's sew some denim. We'll start with denim. I haven't done denim, I think, in the last couple of live streams. So I've got 2 layers that I'm starting with. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a fold. That'll get us up to 4 layers. And then 6 layers. Oh, I didn't fold that one too well. Let me try that again. 2 layers, 4 layers, 6 layers, and then finally 8 layers. 8 layers of denim. Now, why would you have to sew through 8 layers of denim? I have no idea, but it's fun to do so you can say you did it. We might even have Susie make one of her Cricut t-shirts that say, I sewed through 8 layers of heavy grade denim, just so you can say you did it, and then we'll mail it off to you, right? So I'm going to try to do 8 layers of denim. I didn't test this off camera. Hopefully it's not too much. And the Swedish Beauties really don't have any hyper extension. So the clearance I have is the clearance I have right now. I'm going to get that into position. I'll turn our light on. There we go. I might shut the light back off. The LED lights sometimes can create problems. I'm also going to push our pressure up even a little bit higher than I've got it, because 8 layers of denim is a high calling. That's a high calling. All right. I gave it about 2.5 to 3 more turns. So 8 layers of denim, and I think I'll lay down a zigzag on it. I've got all kinds of other materials we're going to be sewing. You can see that right there. I'm going to move those to the back. We'll set us up with a zigzag. I might as well show you how to do that, right? Let's go to the front of the machine. You see right now, we'll start on this side. This is our upper tension, nearly identical to the one that we tore apart and then put back together and cleaned. Same design, basically same design. We're set right now on about just shy of 7, which is good. Go ahead and bring my take-up arm a little bit higher up. There we go. This is going to be our stitch width, and it's also going to be our cam selector. You can see on the side right now, our cam selector is on 5, which on the Swedish Beauties that have this design are going to be a zigzag stitch. Position 5 is going to be a zigzag on all the machines. And then the other settings are going to be for the specific decorative stitches that are on that specific cam. And the cams for these machines kind of look like this. They're really hard to find. They're very expensive if you find them. And the standard set that would have come with Gloria's machine is A, B, and C. And you might also have a revised version where there's a letter after the letter. You can see this one says CI, and that means that this is a revised C cam. So they had the original C cam, and then they made a revised cam that had slightly different stitches on it. And so this one would be one of those revised ones. You'll find that on the A cams, the B cams, the C cams, the D cams. I've never seen a revised E cam before, but they might be out there somewhere. Okay, so We always want to have a cam in the back of the machine because the cam is going to set the swing boundary for the zigzag and other stitches that require that needle swing. You never sew with a Swedish beauty that's got no cam in the back because it'll potentially hit the throat plate and it'll damage the throat plate or break the needle. So we've got it in position 5 right now, which is zigzag. If we want to change this, we always need to make sure our stitch width control over here is going to be, I think I said that wrong. I said this is stitch width. I meant needle position. This is one of my off days, apparently. So this is needle position and also cam selection, not stitch width. I need to drink more coffee and less tea, maybe. So needle position, you see that? And cam selection. So we've got it set for a zigzag right now. And we only want to try to move this when our stitch width, which is right here, is on 0. Then it's going to allow that cam selector to slide from one position to another. Never try to slide this cam selector if the stitch width is on anything other than 0. So in other words, if I move this to 4 right now, I don't want to try to force this to slide because the reader finger in the back of the machine is pressed into that cam right now, and I'm going to damage that reader finger and the slider on there if I try to do that. So if I decide I want to move this, I take this and I take it down to 0, then I can move it freely. Okay? So now that I've gotten it right, needle position and cam selector, stitch width, and this is also going to be a little tab on top of here that's on a lot of the E models. It's going to allow you to press this down and do a buttonhole. There's a little metal tab right there. This is going to be our stitch length up here and also our reverse button. The other thing that they did with the 21Es that the 21As don't have, with the 21As, if you want to sew in reverse, you have to hold this in. With the 21Es and the 19Es, you push it in and you push it down slightly and it'll lock in place so that you can continue to sew in reverse without holding the button in. Then when you want it to release, you push it in and up just slightly, and then that button will pop back out again. Okay? Looks like I have some wax on there. You see that? The little wax on there? I did add some wax to this machine, and I didn't get it all off. I'll have to get that off before I ship it. Okay. What else? Feed dog drop right here. You want the feed dogs to drop, you rotate this clockwise down to the 6 o'clock position, and the feed dogs will drop. And then when you rotate it back up to the 12 o'clock position, the feed dogs will pop back up again. This is our branding mark. You might have seen in a couple of the little scenes an interesting little guy with a crown that popped in. That's because if you don't know it, this company was established in the 1600s, not making sewing machines, but as a company entity in Husqvarna Viking. And they ended up making a drilling and grinding plant because of the decree of King Gustavus Adolphus. You'll be tested on this. So you better remember that. King Gustavus Adolphus decreed the drilling and grinding plant, which gave it the royal ties. And then around 1872, they started making sewing machines. But that's why on the foot controllers, you'll see the royal crown. On the machines themselves, you'll see the royal crown here. You'll see the royal crown up here. It's because this is the only company that genuinely has royal ties that go all the way back to the 1600s. And so other companies like Singer that brag about 1851, or companies like Janome that talk about 1921, or companies like Juki that talk about dates in 1940s, they don't have any bragging rights because Husqvarna Viking is the only company that has roots that go all the way back to the 1600s. And they started making machines right around 1872 again. My voice is going bad here, you guys. I'm not going to be able to sing happy birthday at the end of this live stream if this keeps up. And I talked about social security numbers, right? How a lot of people would take a sewing machine like this that has a great deal of value, and they would put their social security number somewhere on the machine. Well, the owner before Gloria did that right here. I'll cover the last two to protect privacy. So you can see here, T. Thornburg put their social security number, which starts with 52412, and then it ends 02 something. 02 something. Yeah. On the side of the machine, we'll take a look at that real quick, is our bobbin winder. That's where that Japanese belt was running over this and creating a lot of stress on the motor that's right back here, and also creating stress on the pulley for the bobbin winder as well. And you'll see during the sewing process, eventually, we're going to wind a bobbin. We'll put a bobbin on here. It disengages the clutch automatically when we do that. Even the aluminum ones disengage the clutch. And then we're also going to pull this mechanism out and engage the slow gear, which is going to take the machine from full speed all the way down to 1/5 of the speed when we pull this gear out, this gear adjuster. Yeah. Matter of fact, why don't we wind a bobbin right now? I'll put one of these metal bobbins on. We just slide it on. It automatically then disengages the slow gear. See if I can move the camera over here without disconnecting anything. Got to find a spool of thread. There it is. So we're going to set our spool of thread right up here on our auxiliary thread feed. And we have to go through this little thread guide right here. Hopefully you can see that. We're going to come underneath the bottom of it and kind of go to the back. And now we're through that little thread guide. Then we're going to drop down to here. Got to check my laptop to see if you're seeing what I'm seeing. We're going to drop down to here. We're going to go underneath this little finger. See that little finger? And this can also be adjusted in or out. If you start to wind a bobbin and the thread, let's just say the thread is concentrated more on the right, then what you would do is you would loosen this little screw very carefully. And when you retighten it, don't tighten it too much because it screws into plastic. This is plastic on the side. So you loosen it, you just gently pull this out, make sure your finger is pointing forward, and then tighten your screw back up very gently. Don't over tighten. And then it will allow that thread, by adjusting it in or out, to be concentrated more evenly. If it's too far to the left, you'll bring it out. If it's concentrating too much to the right, then you'll push it in, and then it'll distribute that thread more to the left. I hope that makes sense. I think it does. So we're going to go underneath that little finger and then over the top of the tensioner like this. See that? Over the top of the tensioner, and then draw it into those tension discs like that. And then we're going to wind it around the bobbin a couple times. I'll hold my thread and then I'll push on that foot controller and you'll see that bobbin starting to wind, hopefully. It looks like I have a crazy thread there. I've got a rogue thread. Ah ha ha. And I'm getting a little bit more concentration on the right side, so I'm just going to real carefully loosen this little screw right here. Turn it lefty-loosey. And I'm just going to pull this out just a little bit further. Gently tighten it down. Again, when you tighten this, don't tighten it too much or you're going to crack the plastic. Nice and firm. There we go. We'll go ahead and resume winding, and it should push that thread a little bit further to the right. Again, if you're getting too much concentration on the left, then you'll go the opposite. that makes sense. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Go ahead and give that a clip. We take it off. You can see we've done a pretty good job of winding that evenly. It's evenly across there. You don't want to fill it all the way to the edges. And then when we put that into the bobbin case, imagine the bobbin case in my left hand and the bobbin here, you're going to have the thread coming over the top. So as this is turning in the machine, it's going to be turning clockwise like this. Okay? All right. We move that to the side and by just taking that bobbin off, when we go ahead and do our sew off on these 8 layers of denim, you're going to hear a click, and that's that clutch kicking back in automatically. Okay? All right, get our extra spool of thread off. We don't need that anymore. And we are using Coates & Clark dual duty XP thread, as I oftentimes do. It's a good versatile thread. You can use it for hand sewing as well if you want to do that. Okay, so I should be pretty much set to do my zigzag. The only thing I have to do is I have to adjust my stitch width over here from 0 back to 4. And whenever you're adjusting any of these knobs, make sure your needle is clear of the material, okay? I'm going to shut that light off. I think it's creating a little bit of a glare because of the LED. We'll take that over to 4. We're going to leave our stitch length right about on 4 as well. Needle position center. We've got our cam selector on 5, which again is going to be a zigzag on every single cam. Yeah, let's give this a go. See what we get. See if we can get through these 8 layers of denim. I'm going to back this up just a little bit. I'm kind of a little bit farther forward than I wanted to be. Okay. I didn't test this on off camera, so I'm hoping I didn't overestimate what I can do successfully. I know the machine can get through it, but the stitch quality. See if we can maintain stitch quality through 8 layers of heavy grade denim. Okay? All right, here we go. I've almost got my foot on the foot controller. All right, here we go. Kind of went pedal to the metal there a little bit. I'm getting real wild. Ah, okay. So we do have to do a tension adjustment. We have to do a slight tension adjustment. So our top stitching looks really, really good. Give this a clip. Our top stitching looks really, really nice. That's our top stitching right there. So our bobbin case down below is doing an excellent job of maintaining that tension and that stitch integrity. See that? And again, 8 layers of denim is nothing to blink at. See if the camera's like going, hey, I don't know. There we go. So a beautiful top stitch, very, very nice top stitch through all of that denim, 8 layers. But look at our lock stitch. Our lock stitch is just loose in certain areas where it didn't have quite enough pull power from that upper tension. You get real close so we can go across and look. Especially right there. Look at that one right there where my thumb is. So all in all, we had some good success, but if we wanted to tighten this up and sew it one more time, what would we do to do that? Our top stitching looks good. It looks like it's even. It looks like it's solid. Our lock stitching on the bottom, in a couple areas, it could be tighter than it is. A couple little spots where it lost its pull. What do we do? What do we do to fix that? Can we fix it? What do we do? What do we do to tighten up the lock stitch? We can actually do, technically, we could do two things. We could do one of two things. We could do one of two things, but the easier thing to do, what will we do? What will we do? Yeah, Teresa's exactly right. We need to bump up our upper tension slightly, but if we have to go up, if we were going to be sewing 8 layers of denim, heavy grade denim all day long, we're going to be sewing 8 layers of heavy grade denim all day long, and we have to go, let's just say we have to go all the way up to 8. Our maximum range on a Husqvarna Viking upper tension will only take us up to 9. So we can do it. We can do it that way. And that makes perfect sense. Teresa is absolutely right. But we might also, if we were going to be sewing denim like this all day long, we might also have to consider going into our bobbin case and adjusting that down on the adjusting screw just slightly by turning it counterclockwise. And that way it wouldn't be pulling down as hard, which would allow the upper tension to pull up harder without adjusting it excessively. And that way we wouldn't have to go to the max on the upper tension. But Teresa's right. In this instance, what we need to do is we need to go to our upper tension and say, okay, right now we're just a little bit below 7. We're trying to do 8 layers of denim and we're doing really well, but we're just slightly off. So we're going to bump it up to about 7.5. See, we're getting close to our max. And that's where, if we're going to be sewing something like this, we have to go real high on the upper tension. Your backup plan is to pull out your bobbin case and take a small screwdriver and just slightly adjust your bobbin case tension band down by turning it counterclockwise. But let's see if this gets us closer to the finish line. We went from here to here. We'll see if that's enough when we sew this one more time. One more time we're going to do it. But first of all, I better get my take-up arm all the way up. There we go. So we're going to try stitching this one more time. We'll see if we can tighten up that lock stitch. Yeah, and then we'll move on to something else fun. I don't think I've done 8 layers of denim in a while. I think we usually do 6 layers, don't we? So we've added 2 extra layers to this sew-off to test this Husqvarna Viking 21E and see if it can get the job done. All right? All right, here we go. Oops. There we go. Ha, 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 ha. You're going to be staring at the faceplate. All right, here we go. 8 layers of heavy grade denim. We've made a slight adjustment in the upper tension. Let's see if this does it. I also slowed my sewing down a little bit too, didn't I? Sometimes slowing your sewing down will also help you a little bit. Yeah, I would say that's definitely an improvement. That's definitely an improvement. Let's give that a clip and we'll look at that. This is going to be our first one right here. That's going to be our second one. Yeah, let's take a look at that. So the one we just did is on the bottom. And I'm seeing some really good lock stitching there without that sign of the looseness that we saw. We saw that looseness on the first sew off. We saw it here. We see it there. We see it there. So 3 different points where the stitching was not as defined as it could be. Then we had made that upper tension adjustment as Teresa recommended. And now if we go across, take a look at that lower row. Look at that lower row we did second after the adjustment that Teresa recommended. Yeah, much better, much better. And of course, they make something revolutionary called a denim needle. They make a denim needle. that we could certainly also consider using. And a denim needle would serve us better, so we would be less prone to get this kind of thing going on. See that where that's not snug enough? Same thing there. I'm looking at the laptop camera, and that's why I'm struggling a little bit. But we made a huge improvement by adjusting the tension up. And again, if you're going to be doing a lot of sewing that requires an adjustment, getting you up to the upper end of your upper tension, don't be afraid to take that bobbin case out and make a slight adjustment down by turning that screw counterclockwise, and then you won't have to go as high on your upper tension. Okay? Yeah, nice job, Teresa. That definitely made a huge improvement. Definitely a huge improvement over the top row. And that's what 8 layers of heavy grade denim looks like, folks. Yikes. I can't believe we did that. That's crazy. Beautiful job. Beautiful job. Now, does anyone know what size? I didn't talk about this yet. What size motor does this Model 21E come with? It's kind of a trick question. It's a little bit of a trick question. What size motor does the 21E come with? While you're deciding that, I'm going to go to our next sew-off. I might as well do canvas next. I think we'll do canvas next. This is a crazy woven material. This canvas material is really, really a test. It's not U.S. Army grade canvas, but it's a very, very hard, strong canvas material. See, I can't even hold on to it. Definitely not going to rip. It's the kind of stuff you would use on cots or tents or anything you wanted to really, really stand up against to a lot of wear. We're not going to just do 2 layers. That's kind of an insult to this Swedish beauty. I think we'll do 6 layers. So I'm going to go ahead and fold it once. That gets us up to 4. And then I'm going to fold it one more time. And then I'll get us up to 6 layers of heavy grade canvas. You see the layers that we're going to be going through there. We'll slide it underneath there. And we'll try to lay down a zigzag on this as well. And I should probably go to the side a little bit. That way, if we have to adjust that tension again, we can certainly do that. There we go. So Teresa typed in 1.5. She's absolutely right. The 21E came with a 1 amp and a 1.5 amp, but this particular machine that's going back to Fort Wayne, Indiana, has a 1.5 amp motor in it. How do you know that? Because on the back of the machine, there's a data plate. If I can do that with the camera, there's a data plate on the back of the machine right about there. I'll try to hold the camera real still. I don't know if you can read that or not. Getting a little bit of a glare off of there. But at any rate, on the data plate there, I think you can kind of see it. That's where you'll find out what size motor your Swedish beauty has. There's going to be that data plate on the back of there. And it's either going to be a 1 amp or a 1.5 amp. The same is true of the 21As and the 19Es, and certainly a lot of other flavors of the Swedish beauties are generally going to come with a 1 amp. But if you get a bonus like this machine, it's going to have that 1.5 amps. Once I've gone through the motor, it's not going to make a huge difference either way. The 1 amp is going to be able to run side by side with a 1.5 all day long, but it might give you a little bit of a boost for certain types of sewing. And I think on this sewing, why don't we try, for this canvas material, why don't we try our slow gear? We'll try our slow gear and see if we can implement that. Now, one thing to set the record straight again, the slow gear is a slow gear. It's not a power boost. There's a lot of people on Facebook, on Etsy, on Pinterest, on other blogs that talk about it being a power boost, and it's going to power you through the tougher sewing that you wouldn't have without the slow gear. That's not true. If your Swedish beauty has a 1 amp motor, you've got a 1 amp motor. If your Swedish beauty like this one has a 1.5 amp motor, you're going to have a 1.5 amp motor. All it's going to do is slow the machine down from full speed down to 1/5. It's not going to give you the ability to necessarily sew through something that you couldn't otherwise sew through just sewing through regular. But it might give you better stitch quality because when you slow down for certain needle swings, it's going to give you better clarity of stitch than if you race through it. Does that make sense? But I want to be clear that the slow gear is a slow gear. It's not a power boost, okay? Not a power boost. All right, another quick sip of tea. And then we're going to look at this slow gear and we'll go ahead and engage it. But I want to first of all make sure before you engage the slow gear, make sure you get your take-up arm to the right position, because once you engage the slow gear, it's going to take control of that balance wheel and you're not going to be able to turn it. It's going to lock it in place. So we got our take-up arm all the way up like we want it. Now we're going to go over to that slow gear and we're going to go ahead and grab it like this. And we're going to go ahead and pull it out. Okay, that's it. Our slow gear is now engaged. And we're going to go through these, try to go through these 6 layers of canvas using that slow gear to slow the machine down so we don't race through it. Okay. All right. So 6 layers of heavy grade canvas using our slow gear on this 1962 Swedish Beauty. All right, here we go. Hey, look, Mom, no hands. You see, I wasn't even, these feed dogs do an excellent job when the presser foot pressure is adjusted right. You notice that I wasn't even holding the material through these 6 layers of heavy grade canvas, and it fed it just beautifully true and straight, didn't it? So now I'm going to pop my presser foot up, but I can't adjust my balance wheel right now because it's locked in place because of that slow gear. So the first thing I need to do is I need to push that slow gear back in like this. And now I can turn my balance wheel over on the other side to get my material out properly. Okay, there we go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, very, very nice. Very nice. 6 layers of canvas. You wouldn't even know it. You wouldn't even know that we just went through a sew-off like that. Look at this. That's our top stitching. Oh, wait, here I am. That's our top stitching. Come on, camera. Come on. Whoop, 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 whoop. That's our top stitching. Wow. Wow. Absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful stitching. Again, that's what we just went through. 6 layers of heavy grade canvas. And you know what? The machine just made it look super easy, didn't it? Super duper easy. Let's flip it over and look at that lock stitching. And because we allowed that slow gear to slow us down while we're executing a zigzag like this that has needle swing, it even manages that tension better when we slow it down, doesn't it? Beautiful, beautiful lock stitching all the way across. Nothing, no loosey-goosey stuff, nothing weird going on. It's just absolutely beautiful. And again, they've got needles that would service maybe better than the 9014 Universal Schmetz needle, especially on that denim material that would service better. But that Universal is doing an excellent job both with our lock stitching and our top stitching as well. Wow. That's a lot of canvas, folks. That's a lot of canvas. A lot of canvas, but I gotta hit the button.
That was easy. That was easy.
That was easy. That was really, really easy. So we've done 8 layers of denim. We've done 6 layers of canvas, heavy grade canvas. Let's move into something else now. Let's move into something else. Maybe we should go to the light side. Let's go to the light side, which is always better than going to the dark side, right? Not to pull any Star Wars stuff out. But let's go to the light side and sew some satin. And we're going to use some of those decorative stitches that are on that Cam A revised that is in the back of the machine right now. I think I've got the A in there. Yep, I do. I've got Cam A in the back of the machine right now, and we're going to sew some satin, and we're going to try to lay down some decorative stitching on the satin. So you can imagine as the holidays come again, and we're celebrating Christmas and Hanukkah and all the beautiful things that come with that season, you can imagine taking some of this vintage ribbon and making some beautiful stitching down on it. So I'm going to grab that ribbon right now. This is vintage ribbon. And we're going to set up the machine to do some of the decorative sewing that might be on Cam A. Get that into place. And because this ribbon has a backing on it, you see the backing right there, I'm not going to mess with the presser foot pressure. If it didn't have that backing, I would have to adjust the presser foot pressure down so that it didn't create that puckering. But I think we'll be okay. All right. So I've got that vintage ribbon in place. And now we need to adjust it so we can finally access some of those stitches that are on the cam that are in the rear of the machine. Now, if you're saying you keep talking about the cam, you talk about the rear of the machine, where the heck is that? Where is that? Well, you just go over here and you open the little secret door like this, and there's our cam right there. That's our Cam A revised, I believe it is, AI. You see our main drive belt as well. Our tooth belt right there that's going to give us really, really good traction and drive. And as we change the cams out, we'll have to go back to that rear of the machine again and change the cams out. And I'll show you how to do that also. But first of all, let's access those cams. So I've got to take my stitch width over here. I've got to take that down to 0. Remember, never move that slider. Never move the slider if your stitch width is set on anything other than 0. So I'm going to take that down to 0. And I'm going to move this out to 4. There we go. Then I'm going to adjust my stitch width back to 4 again. And now I need to adjust my stitch length so that that decorative stitch is going to have tight definition. So I'm going to take my stitch length and I'm going to turn it. We went from 4 down to 3, down to 2, down to 1, down to about 0.4. You can go between 0.3 to 0.5 when you're doing the decorative ornamental stitching. Don't go any lower than that, or you're going to have a mess. It won't be feeding properly with that needle swing, and you're going to be creating a big mess. So we're going to go right around 0.4. I think that'll be pretty close. All right, so we're all set there. Adjust my camera back. Make sure my material is set pretty straight. There we go. Get my take-up arm all the way up. Okay, so we're going to be stitching with revised Cam A. Again, it's going to have an A on it, and it's going to have a little letter that looks like an I after the A on the cam itself. Pretty much like the one I showed you already, the CI, but it's going to be AI. See if that helps it focus. So in the back, we have AI. Here we have CI. Okay, so let's try this first stitch. It's going to be stitch number 4 on Cam A revised. Okay, let's see what we get. Just double checking everything. Yep, I think we're good. All right, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to do all the rest of the stitches too, and then we'll look at these afterwards. I may have a jam on my cam. Hold on a second. Not my cam, on my my bobbin case. Feels like I do. This is good. I'm glad that this happened just so that we can take a look at this. Hold on a second. Give that a clip. I'll set that right there. I'm going to take out my bobbin case. Aha. Look at what happened. See that? The thread jumped out between that little gap there. This is a metal bobbin. It's not an aluminum one, but that thread came out between, and this happens sometimes with these Swedish beauties, came out between there, and then it creates a jam on there so that the bobbin won't turn. We take it out. I'm going to add just a little bit of lubricant because sometimes it gets dry. Where's my, there it is. Swab the inside of there a little bit. And that can also happen if when I was winding the bobbin, if I didn't wind it true enough, if it was offset a little bit. Remember, I had to make that change on there and adjust it because it was concentrating on one side instead of the other. We're going to go ahead and load our thread back in. And again, when you're loading it, you'll have your, yeah, it does look like I wound it a little bit uneven. It's higher on the right side than on the left side. So if that repeats itself, we'll go to a different bobbin. The thread's over the top. We're going to go ahead and draw it over here through that little notch. Come underneath our tension bar. You notice it's turning clockwise. And then we'll go ahead and insert it back in. We'll draw our thread up. I just lost my grip on the thread. Hold on a second. All right, let's try that again. Rotate it down. And we'll draw this back. All right, we're going to try that sew off one more time. If we have an issue, then we'll swap bobbins because I wound that other metal bobbin as well. Or maybe the bobbins can be real sensitive and they sometimes will have a little burr on them. Maybe I missed that burr. And we'll try stitching it one more time using the same bobbin. Otherwise, we'll throw that bobbin to the side and we'll switch to the other bobbin that I wound a little bit ago. There we go. It's a little bit crooked. All right, let's give this a try again. Yeah, that's a happier bobbin. We may stick with this bobbin. That's some good looking, really good looking stitching. That's going to be our stitch number 4 on cam A revised. But I'm ready to switch bobbins if we have to. Never be afraid. Always go back to the basics. If you have an issue that crops up and the issue normally doesn't occur, always check your needle and check your bobbins. And you can check your thread as well. You might be using the wrong kind of thread for that particular setup. Yeah, very lovely. Very, very nice. All right, let's go to stitch number 3 now. Let me set up our material again. And before I try to move this, I've got to take this down to 0. Now I can move it to position 3. Take this back to 4. And now we'll try to do stitch number 3. Stitch number 3 on cam A revised. Stitch number 3 on cam A revised. Okay, here we go. Slow down, buddy. Slow down. All right, we'll stop right there. So that's stitch number 3 on cam A revised. So you notice the problem hasn't repeated itself yet, but I'm still going to keep my eye on it. But sometimes it's a matter of lubrication. Remember, your raceway is your brain center. I always call it the brain center because that's where the magic happens. That's where the stitching is created. And if your machine, depending on the environment, especially as we come out of winter, the air is much drier. Depending on how your house is running, the type of filters you have on your HVAC system, the amount of dust or dirt or grease in the air, all those things can factor into what happens with your raceway. And it might get a little bit dirty. It might get dry. A little bit of oil, kerosene will sometimes just straighten it out very nicely. That's why I love kerosene so much. Yeah. So we can do the next stitch now. It's going to be stitch number 2 on cam A revised. So again, before I try to adjust my slider, before I try to adjust the slider, I'm going to adjust this down to 0, my stitch width. Then I can move this to position 2. Then I move this back to 4. I'm going to leave my stitch length alone. That's my stitch length right there. Just leave it exactly where it is at 0.4. You see we're set at 0.4 right now. In your book, if you have a owner's manual for your Swedish Beauty, it might recommend, this is one of my aftermarket ones. This is one of the aftermarket ones. I used to sell these on eBay a lot. I had it professionally bound and printed. And aren't they cute? They're adorable, aren't they? Your manual might tell you to set your stitch length on something different than what I'm recommending. You could try what the manual says, and then you can do it the right way. But at any rate, you can adjust it as you need to, because your machine might react a little bit differently than this one if it hasn't gone through the workshop magic. Okay, so stitch number 2 on cam A revised in this Swedish Beauty from 1962. All right, let's give this a go. Here we go. Yeah, I think that bobbin is going to be an issue. I think that bobbin is malfunctioning right now. Yep, that bobbin is malfunctioning. We're going to finish our stitch line and then we're going to stop. Yeah, I don't like that bobbin. We're going to change out that bobbin. Yeah. See, when that bobbin is malfunctioning like that, it's moving in that bobbin case in the wrong way. You're getting a decent looking stitch, but look at what's happening on the backside. See that? So we're going to get rid of that bobbin and switch to our other metal one. This might have a flaw in it that's so subtle, it's hard to see. But it's definitely not happy in there. Take this one out. And we'll go to the other one that we wound. I think that's the one that we just wound. We'll give this one a go. So we just switched out bobbins because we were getting a funny, you could tell it wasn't moving in that bobbin case properly. Let's give this one a try. This is good to have this happen because it gives you some troubleshooting to do if yours all of a sudden starts to act up. All right, pull that one up. It behaved for those one stitch lines, and then it started to have issues again, didn't it? All right, so we got our other bobbin in there, which performed pretty well for this stitch line. It did quite a lovely job. There it is. Did a lovely job. Lovely job. And we got to this third stitch, which is stitch number 2 on cam A1. And it went bug house. Look at that. So we switched out the bobbin rather, to another metal bobbin, not the aluminum one. We're going to see if we do that same stitch row and see if we get a different result. Okay. We do that same stitch, just with a different bobbin in there. All right, let's see how we do. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. Ah, same issue, same issue. I'm going to stop there. Look at that. I'm going to see if I have a different bobbin case. It's either going to be the bobbin or bobbin case. Oh, it actually wrapped around there. Look at that. See, that's the beauty of live streaming, is you run into issues like this that will crop up. Just going to look at my needle too. Feel a little bit of a rough spot on there. Even a Schmetz needle can develop a flaw on it. We're going to troubleshoot this together. This is fun. Pull out a fresh needle. We'll start with the basics. Pull out a fresh Schmetz 9014 needle. I'm going to change out the needle. I'm going to check my raceway. Everything looks fine in there. The other thing we can try to do as well is we can try, maybe this material for some reason is causing issues for us on this type of stitch. You try to go back to the original stitch that we did. Certain stitches on certain types of materials will have problems. And that may be also what we're facing. We'll check it out. We did hit that needle pretty hard with that denim and canvas. So we're going to eliminate the needle as a potential culprit. We very seldom suspect our Schmetz needles because they're so resilient and so strong. But the way it was stitching before, just make sure that that's not the problem. Let's check our bobbin case as well. All right. We changed out the needle. I'm going to go back to the same bobbin case with the same bobbin. And I'm going to go back to one of these stitches that we already sewed, and then I'll believe that it might be an issue with that particular stitch on this type of material, because we could always sew the same stitch on a different material and see if it reacts the same way. Yeah, I think it's an issue with the bobbin or bobbin case, to be honest with you. It's an issue with the bobbin case or the bobbin. All right, I'm going to go back to the previous stitch so we can determine whether or not, because this is severe as far as its response to that. All right, I'm going to go back to stitch 3. We'll try to duplicate that. See if we get the same result, and then we're going to try doing that. If we get a good result, then we'll go back to the other stitch, the stitch that's giving us problems right now, and we'll try doing it on a different material than this vintage satin material. See if that will solve the issue. Satin is a tricky material to sew on, so we'll see if that may be the problem. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's try this again. Oh, I better shut my door. All right, here we go. So that stitch looks, look at the contrast. Isn't that humorous? Look at the contrast of what we got with that particular stitch. And then we just changed the needle. We did this one again. So I've got to get one more piece of velvet or satin rather. I got to get one more piece of satin. We changed out the needle. Let's see if the needle was the culprit. I'm just always so confident in Schmetz needles. But I think we might even have a flaw in that. That's the original bobbin case that came with the machine, and I cleaned it and serviced it, but it might have an issue with that tension band on there. All right, I'm going to leave that one right there. So we just did that stitch. Yep, I like it. Grab another piece of that velvet. We'll try to do that other stitch that gave us problems one more time. Should probably try a different piece of material first. Let's try it on a different piece of material first. I think I've got, over here. I'm going to try it on cotton with a stiffener to see if it's maybe how it's responding to that velvet material. We've got this velvet. We'll try that afterwards if we're successful in doing it. Stitch number 2. All right, this is our problem stitch right here. We'll see if we can do it on cotton. 2 layers of cotton with a stiffener. Otherwise, we will bounce back to the velvet, and I know I have other bobbin cases if we need them. Everything wears out over time. All right, let's give this a try again. This is the same stitch. Yeah, I think stitch number 2 is the one that we had issues with. Let's give this a try again, see what happens. And there's that stitch that gave us all of the headache. On cotton, it sewed very, very nicely. On velvet, look at what it did on velvet. Oh, wait, the camera's, sorry. Here it sewed on the cotton, it sewed very nicely. That's our top stitching and our lock stitching. This is what it did on velvet. So we can narrow it down now either to the material or the fact that there was a flaw on our Schmetz needle. If we try to do it on velvet and it sews perfectly, then we can center the issue that it was on the needle side. And that changing out the bobbin from the metal one that was falling out of the track to the other one is going to do the deal. Because we didn't get any duplication of this whatsoever, changing the material after we changed the needle. So we're going to try the velvet one more time with the same stitch and see if we get a good outcome. Then we can attribute it to there was a problem with the Schmetz needle. which it's almost unheard of for that to happen, but it can happen, especially after hitting it with the denim and the canvas the way we did. That's a lovely, lovely stitch on 100% cotton. Isn't this fun? It's kind of fun to experience problems because then it gives you some baseline if you run into something similar to troubleshoot it on your end. Yeah. All right, let me set this to the side. We're going to get out the same velvet. It's exactly the same type of velvet. Vintage velvet ribbon material. We're going to try to do the same stitch on this. If we run into the same problem again with this sort of thing going on, then it's an issue of how that stitch is being laid down, presumably, and what it's requiring as far as that. So let's see if we can pull it off after that needle change. All right? See if we can pull it off after that needle change. Gonna make sure my bobbin hasn't done anything weird. Give me a second. Bobbin looks good. Feed is good. There's nothing popping out between the seams. There's just such a slight tolerance between the bobbin case and the bobbin. Under the right circumstances, it can create issues sometimes. All right, we're going to go back to velvet and see what we get. All right, test number 2. Different needle, different bobbin. Let's see what happens. I'm even slowing it down, but I think it's an issue. It's an issue with that particular stitch. I'm going to stop right there. Isn't that interesting? Look at that. Brand new needle, different bobbin, but that particular stitch is creating an issue when we're sewing it on this vintage velvet material. That specific stitch, stitch number 2 on cam revised A, and even cams can have issues with them as well, but it seems to not be the cam because it is it's executing the stitch beautifully when we do it on the cotton material. So I don't think it's the cam. I think it's specifically this material and what that stitch and needle movement is requiring of it to execute that stitch. I'm going to bypass this one for right now, and we're going to go on to stitch number 1 on cam A revised and see if we can pull that off on this velvet material. Velvet, silks, and satins, they can be a little bit of a tricky material to sew. Let's see if we can pull off the stitch number 1 on this same cam. So I'm going to make my adjustment over here. I'm going to take us down to 0, move us from setting 2, setting 1, back to 4, and see if this stitch has the similar issues that the last one did, or whether it runs well like the first stitch 4 and 3. All right, here we go. So that's stitch number 1 on cam A revised. It's absolutely as it should be. Absolutely as it should be. Now here's the other thing I should consider that I hadn't considered is that last stitch that we had all the problems with. Maybe I've got the stitch length set a little bit low for that particular stitch. And that's maybe where the manual would recommend something other than what I did. You can try that one more time. And then I'm going to move on from there because we have to move on from there. But the machine is sewing beautifully on everything but that one stitch, stitch number 2 on revised cam A. We'll give it one last opportunity, and I'll make that stitch length just a little bit longer. But if it does the same thing, then it's something outside the scope of what the machine is doing. It's how that stitch is being generated. I'm going to go back to stitch number 2. Got to do that with 2 hands. Hold on a second. There we go. So I moved it back to stitch number 2 one more time. Stitch width there. Now let's adjust this so it's not quite as short. We take it to about right around 0.6. Take it to right about there. See if that makes a difference for it. This problematic stitch that's plaguing us right now, stitch number 2 on cam revised A1. All right, let's give this a try. Here we go. So that helped, didn't it? So what did we discover? We discovered we still had a little bit of a flaw thing right there that I don't quite like. But on this particular stitch, for whatever reason, because of the needle demands and the movement, my stitch length set on 0.4 was too short for this type of material, for that particular stitch, because we were able to get through it without any major flaws. I don't like the look of that right there. But our lock stitching looks really, really good. It's just those 3 stitches as we launched, 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches as we launched where it did something just a little bit weird. But I'm content that it's probably user error at this point. It's probably the fact that certain stitches, and this happened once before when I was trying to launch a stitch, I went too short and it basically created a ball's nest on the end of the material. It wasn't feeding properly. And with this particular one, if you do stitch number 2 on revised cam A, set your stitch length just a little bit longer than what the other stitches require. And you'll get a better result like this and this compared to that and that. I think we won. I think we won in the end. The end result is we were able to accomplish. I didn't want to give up on that stitch, but I thought maybe by extending that stitch length just slightly, we could pull it off. And all in all, we did. All right, I'm going to throw this to the side. We got to move on. We got to move on. That was fun, wasn't it? Like a migraine headache, that was fun. But that's okay. We learned stuff together, and it's all good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go away from cam A1, and we're going to go to cam B. Cam B is next. Cam B is next. So in order to take the cam out, we'll take our stitch length, stitch width all the way to 0. And now we can move our slider all the way to position 5. Now we'll go to the back of the machine. Open it up. we'll bring our little arm down so we can remove the cam. See how that goes up and down like that? Take our cam out and get rid of cam A revised, which has given us a major headache. I'll put in cam B now. Close our door. And now we'll try to do some stitching on cam B after cam A. We can keep messing with this velvet for a little bit. See if any of these other stitches give us the same problem that cam A revised did. So now we're going away from cam A, cam B. We'll give this first stitch a try. We're down on 0 right now, so we can move our stitch selector right here to 4. Take our stitch width back to 4. And I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be bold and wild. I'm going to move us from around 0.6 back to between 0.4 and 0.5, right about there. I won't be quite as aggressive going to 0.4 on the stitch length, right about there, right in between. See if we can pull off this first stitch. And when we run out of room for this vintage velvet, we're going to retire the velvet for now, I think. We're going to retire the velvet after that. So this is cam B, stitch number 4 we're going to do first. All right, let's see how this goes. Here we go. Oh yeah, it's almost like a little ribbon thing on ribbon. Look at that. I love it. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Yeah, sometimes I can be a little bit too aggressive on trying to go too short on the stitch length for these decorative ornamental stitches, and sometimes it can create issues, and that's okay. I can also notice as we're sewing through this velvet, it's leaving a lot of debris on the presser foot as well. It's kind of shedding almost as we go. And that's true of a lot of different materials. I know as you deal with the polar fleeces can create a lot of issues with shedding and leaving a lot of deposits behind. And the same thing can be true of these different man-made velvet materials too. All right, we're going to try to do 1 or 2 more stitches on cam B on this velvet, and then we'll move to a different material. So again, when you change cam settings, take your stitch width down to 0, and we can move to the stitch number 3, turn our stitch width back to 4. And again, we're a little bit less aggressive on the stitch length this time. We're right around point, well, 0.4, 0.5, something like that. We're just right between 0.4 and 0.5 on the stitch length. All right, let's give this one a go. Oh yeah, this is a nice one. Very, very nice. I always like to go tighter just to pull that thread even tighter together in the pattern. But yeah, it can create issues sometimes, can't it? Like it did on this stitch. All right, let's try to do 1 more on this velvet, and then we're going to move to a different material. We're going to do stitch number 2. That was the other, on the other cam A revised, that problem stitch, this one right here, was also position 2. Let's hope it doesn't give us another headache. That's okay. We'll win. We'll win in the end. Okay, so I'm taking my stitch width down to 0 again. You'll see my needle move probably. Yep. I'm going to move us to position 2. Take our stitch width back to 4. And we'll try to do this next stitch that's on cam B on this vintage velvet material. I think I called it satin before. It's actually velvet. All right, here we go. Yeah, very, very nice. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. All right. I am pleased to say that we're done with this vintage velvet for right now. And we're going to move on to some leather, hopefully, and do some more sew-offs with this 1962 Husqvarna Model 21E. But, you know, even though we had to battle that a little bit, we learned some stuff, didn't we? Sometimes the machine is screaming out to us that it wants to do the stitch that we want it to do, but we're pushing it outside of the boundaries of what it's capable of doing. And I think that may have been a big part of our problem with this stitch right here, is that we were pushing it just a little bit too far on the stitch length. And when we made that adjustment, we put in a new needle, kind of flipped out the bobbin itself. We got some really, really good results. Some beautiful results. Yeah. All right, let's retire the velvet and move on to some other sew-offs, because we're going to have to wrap this up in probably about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, I think I'm going to do a heavy-duty sew-off now. I've got these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. This is not the hardened leather, but it's pretty doggone thick. You can see that right there. And I think we'll try to demonstrate the strength of that 1.5 amp motor. See if we can lay down a nice zigzag on this. I'm not going to try to do a decorative stitch. I think that might be pushing it a little bit far. I could try it, but I don't know. I've been pushing this machine outside the boundaries already. Maybe I shouldn't do that. So I'm going to take this down to a zigzag to start. Give it a little bit more length to work with. Let's try a zigzag on this first, and then maybe I'll take a swing at laying down one of those decorative stitches on this leather as well. Again, we're not sewing with a leather needle. We're sewing with a universal needle. But you know what? It's worth a try. We can at least try it. All right? Keep your fingers crossed. It's been an uphill battle in certain respects, but we have won. We have won. All right, here we go. All right. Took that really slow. Wanted to give this thing an opportunity to really succeed. All right, so that's 2 layers of leather and some really, really good looking zigzagging on it as well. There's our zigzag. Maybe a little bit of a tension bump up again. One little sign right there that there wasn't quite enough pull up. But all in all, a beautiful, beautiful zigzag through these 2 layers. Let me see if I can get that closer for you. Through these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. So let me see. Yeah, that would be our top stitching. There's our top stitching. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Lock stitching. That's a lot of leather to go through with a Schmetz Universal, folks. I always make the Schmetz people nervous. They follow us on Facebook. They follow us on YouTube. And whenever I'm doing something with their needles that they don't really recommend, they let me know that. But that's some really, really lovely zigzagging, some lovely, lovely top stitching as well. All right. Dare I try it? Dare I try it? What was the last stitch we did on that cam B? I'm trying to remember. It was this one, maybe. That's going to give it a lot of opportunity to stretch itself out. And that would have been stitch number 1, I believe. Yeah, let's try it. Why not? And Susie is in the background going, honey, just go forward with it. It's going great. Don't push the limits on the machine too much, but it's a Swedish beauty. We have to push the limits on a Swedish beauty. We have to. We got to do it. All right, so we're going to try a decorative stitch, which is insane, with a non-leather needle going through 2 layers of thick, genuine cowhide. You can see it from the side there, what we're going to be going through. We're going to try it anyway. All right. Trying to see which one. Oh, that's a pretty one too. That would be nice. Let's see here. All right, let me see if I can pull this off. See if we can pull this one off. It's going to be a decorative stitch going through 2 layers of leather. And then we have just 1 sew off left. We're going to do 1 more sew off. Of course, we didn't do cam C yet, did we? We didn't do cam C. We got to do cam C maybe. See if we can pull that off real quick. All right, here we go. Keep your fingers and toes and everything else. Keep your fingers and toes crossed. Here we go. Yeah, I think that's too much. Too much going through all this. I'll be doggone. Leaping lizards, we did it. We did it. See, I should test some of this off camera before I declare it during a live stream, because then I'm committed, you know? You're committed once you do it. All right. So there's a really lovely stitch. That's going to be stitch number 1 on cam B, going through 2 layers of very thick leather. So you can get up there like that. Yeah, very, very nice. That's a complex stitch too. You look at what the needle has to do to generate that. Very, very nice. Yeah, there's our lock stitching. Very, very nice. Yeah, you might have to make subtle tension adjustments as we go. But yeah, through that much leather, to do a decorative stitch like that, yeah, I'm pleased. I'm very pleased. Beautiful stitching. All right, let's throw that to the side. We're running out of time here. We're running out of time. We've got about 10 minutes to wrap up. About 10 minutes to wrap up. So I'm going to have to hold you in suspense and say, I don't know if we'll have time to, yeah, what the heck. We'll do it. We'll do it on cotton real quick. See if we can zip down cam C on cotton, and then we'll do our final sew off in a circle. See if we can pull this off. All right. So we'll take out our cam C. Cam B, excuse me. We'll take out cam B, and we'll get cam C in there real quick. Okay, cam C is in the back. And we're not going to do a zigzag because we've already done a couple of zigzags. We're going to do cam C now, stitch number 4 on cam C. See if we can pull this one off. All right, here we go. It's a little arrow stitch. It's an arrow stitch. Hope we can see that. Yep. This is cam C again. There's our lock stitch on the back. Let me zip through all of these and then I'll show you at the end. Go through all of these and then we'll zip into our final sew off as we're running out of time. I was wanting to stay under 4 hours. And all of you that have been with us from the beginning, you have unbelievable devotion. We still have 1,100 people, 1,159 people in the live chat. That's amazing. Or not in the live chat. I wish all of them would come out of the shadows. We have 1,159 people in the live stream is what I meant to say. All right, let me do this next stitch. We're on cam C now. I think it's cam C revised. We did stitch number 4. Now we're doing stitch number 3. All right, here we go. Oh, our building block one. Yeah, I like that one. Very cool. Okay, couple more stitches on cam C, and then we're going to launch into our final finale. Our final finale. God is good. All right, that's cam C. Bring that up. Turning down to 0 on the stitch width, moving us to position 2. Stitch number 2 on cam C revised. All right, here we go. It's kind of like an eyebrow stitch. One more stitch on cam C, because we're not going to do the zigzag. Each of these cams has 5 stitches. Again, position 5 is always going to be a zigzag to set the swing boundaries so the needle doesn't hit the throat plate. So again, never operate one of these Swedish beauties unless you have a cam in them. Okay, our final stitch on revised cam C, and then we'll go into our finale. Here we go. It's almost kind of an EKG one, isn't it? It kind of looks like an EKG. Yeah, very, very nice. I'll give you a closer look at these, and then we're going to jump into our finale. I want to wrap things up pretty quick here. Like I said at the beginning of the live stream, Susie and I have to go somewhere, so I want to keep an eye on our time. So let's take a look at these stitches, and then we'll jump into our final sew-off. So this is cam C. I was a little bit more conservative. I only went to 0.5 instead of 0.4 because that one particular stitch gave us a headache, didn't it? Because we tried to go too short on it. But cam C really is quite a lovely, lovely cam as far as decorative ornamental stitching. Yeah, very, very nice. It's our top stitching. I always want to push it a little bit tighter to snug those up more, but there's our lock stitching. Yeah, very, very nice. All right, final finale. I want to thank everybody for your perseverance as we battle certain challenges, but it's good to do that, isn't it? Because it shows us that we can overcome challenges when we face them. And then it gives you tools in your toolbox when you face a challenge in a particular stitch is just giving you a nightmare like this one did. No, that's the other one I did off camera. Sorry. See that I did this one off camera and it was very cooperative. Yeah, this one here that really gave us quite a booger, didn't it? But it gives us more tools to bring to the equation when we face challenges, and that's okay. Okay, final sew off is going to be this genuine cowhide. I'm going to go in a circle. You just have to decide what stitch I'm going to do. What stitch am I going to do? See if any of those really catch my fancy on cam C. I really like cam B most, to be honest with you. Let's see here. Yeah, I think I'm going to take out cam C and put cam B in. Remember which one that was. I really like that one. 0. All right, I'm gonna try to do cam B stitch number 3. I don't even remember which one it is. I'll start with that and then maybe I'll switch to something else. All right, so take care, everybody. God bless. See if I can put on a little bit of music as we wrap this up in these final minutes. Oh, heck, why don't we do the birthday song? I can sew to the birthday song. I think I can. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do the birthday song. All right, we'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a blessed day. Yeah, that's fun. I like that. Very, very nice. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. To you, happy birthday to you. Sing with me, Tim. Sing with me. Happy birthday, dear, whoever you are. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday! Woo! Yeah, baby.